holding my youngest daughter Emily in my arms. I was dozing off when my husband Benjamin suddenly raised his voice as he returned home. "Hey! Your husband came home from work and you're napping so carefree?" My second daughter Olivia jumped up in shock, while my eldest daughter Natalie stood beside her, glaring at their father. "I'm sorry." I tried to stand up, but I felt dizzy and stumbled. Benjamin sneered at me and took out an envelope. "I've been thinking of having you, a lazy wife like you, leave this house. Sign this and get out quickly." The content of the envelope he was grinning while holding out was a divorce paper. My face twisted in frustration. "At least, let me take the kids with me. I can't trust someone like you with the kids. Please, at least that." Clinging to his legs, I pleaded with him. Then he pushed Olivia towards me. "You can take this one and the baby. But you can't have Natalie," he said, grabbing Natalie from behind in a chokehold. "No! Let her go! She's quite useful to me. I'll take good care of her." I tried to pull Natalie away from Benjamin, but he pushed me away. "Hey, Natalie. If you don't obey me quietly, who knows what I'll do to your mom." He was threatening Natalie using me. How could he? "If you care about Natalie, you'll leave right away." With those words, he left the house. I hugged my crying children and started packing. "I'm sorry, Natalie. I promise, I'll come back for you." I hugged her tightly, spending our last night together. My name is Scarlett Brown. I live with my husband Benjamin, my mother-in-law, and our 3 daughters, a normal housewife who works part-time 3 or 4 days a week. I met Benjamin at work where I was a full-time employee when we got married. Though we were in different departments, everything went smoothly from dating to marriage. 3 months into our marriage, Benjamin made a proposal. "I'd really like to have 3 kids." He often showed his fondness for children, so I knew someday we might have our own. But I was worried about balancing work and parenting. "I've thought about it too, but we just got married, right? Plus, I'm handling a big project at work." Expressing my concerns only made me more anxious. Seeing my worried look, Benjamin reassured me, "Don't worry. They're my kids too. I won't let you handle all the parenting alone." I felt so grateful to have married such a kind man and began to cherish the thought of raising his children. A year later, when our first daughter Natalie was born, Benjamin, true to his word, took the lead in caring for her. I was on parental leave and tried my best not to overburden him. However, when Natalie was 3 months old, Benjamin's business trips began to increase. "There's not much I can do about this." Sure, it's work, I understood that. But before I could even bring it up, Benjamin seemed uneasy. I was only grateful to him and couldn't understand why he was avoiding eye contact. "It's okay. I won't complain. Just help out when you can, within your limits." Hearing this, Benjamin smiled with relief. "Of course, I'll do that," he said, bowing his head jokingly. Parenting can be tough, but if we can keep laughing together like this, I know we can get through it. I was feeling grateful for these happy moments. "I'll watch Natalie today. Why don't you go out and relax a bit?" One day, my mother-in-law, with whom we lived, suggested this, so I decided to go out for a meal with a colleague. Benjamin was away on a business trip and wouldn't be home that day. I planned to buy some pastries as a thank you for my mother-in-law and have tea with her tomorrow. With that idea, I bought some pastries at a bakery and headed to meet my colleague. Lost in the familiar streets, I thought I saw Benjamin, but he quickly disappeared into the crowd. He said he was on a business trip, maybe I was mistaken. Without dwelling on it, I hurried to the meeting place. Catching up with my colleague after a long time, I got home just before the date changed. My mother-in-law had already put Natalie to bed and was taking a break. "Mother-in-law, I'm sorry. I got back late." I apologized, bowing my head. She smiled back kindly at me. She's a woman of few words, but she didn't seem angry or annoyed. I shrugged apologetically, and my mother-in-law said with a laugh, "Feel free to tell me anytime. I've never taken care of a girl before, so it's fun for me." The next day, I gave my mother-in-law the thank you pastries, and as we were having tea together, she asked me a question I'd never heard before. "What kind of person is Benjamin to you, Scarlett?" I was surprised she would ask about her own son, but I honestly shared my feelings. I told her he was kind, understanding of my emotions. We do have our fights occasionally, but he always apologizes sincerely. She just nodded as she listened, then casually remarked, "To me, he's always been incredibly selfish, arrogant, and can get quite emotional." I had never known that side of him. Noticing my surprise, she said, "Benjamin changed after meeting you, Scarlett." "He's become kinder to me too," she said with a warm smile, thanking me for changing Benjamin and asking for my continued support. Her hand was warm as she held mine, but there was a firm strength in her grip. When Natalie turned 1, I went back to work on a part-time basis. I had thought Benjamin would start helping out more with housework and childcare once I resumed work, but that wasn't the case. Natalie was an easy child, so I didn't feel too burdened and didn't press him for help, but my reliance on my mother-in-law increased, which worried me. When I talked to Benjamin about it, he replied indifferently, "Mom's always at home, she doesn't mind doing that much." Ah, this must be the arrogance my mother-in-law was talking about. I couldn't keep relying on her so much, so when Natalie turned 2 and started daycare, I was relieved. Returning to a regular work schedule, my days became a whirlwind. I wanted to ask Benjamin to at least help with daycare drop-offs and pickups, but he was often too busy with early meetings or client dinners, so I decided to handle it myself. Whenever Natalie got suddenly sick, I was the one who had to take leave. Feeling increasingly cornered by the constant thoughts of why is it always me? And yearning for just a little bit of understanding. I tried to talk to Benjamin one night while lying in bed. "Hey, Benjamin." But without even looking at me, he sighed and said coldly, "I have an early start tomorrow. Give me a break. What if Natalie wakes up?" I was shocked. Day after day, I was caught up in work, household chores, and childcare, with no one to help me. Silently, I let the tears flow, careful not to let Benjamin notice. Soon, I could hear his snoring beside me. The next day, noticing my lack of energy, my mother-in-law said, "Scarlett, I'm feeling pretty good today, so I'll pick up Natalie. I'll also prepare dinner." Natalie was clearly happy, but there was no reaction from Benjamin, who had seen the exchange. I felt my feelings for him cooling. Benjamin had stopped helping around the house, but at night, he would seek my company. Honestly, I was too exhausted from work and childcare to even think about it. I had refused once, but he got so upset that I reluctantly agreed afterward. When I found out I was pregnant with our second child, I was also up for a promotion. I knew Benjamin wouldn't help with childcare or housework. Between children and work, I knew I had to choose the children. I understood that, but lying on the couch, carelessly watching TV and laughing, not showing any concern for me during my pregnancy, I felt hatred towards Benjamin for the first time. Even after the birth of our second daughter, Olivia, he seemed completely uninterested. He would take Natalie to the park, but he wouldn't even change Olivia's diapers. Over these 5 years, I hadn't realized how gradually Benjamin had changed, becoming too familiar in our daily life. And I hadn't realized how much my own feelings for him had cooled. Since Olivia's birth, Benjamin stopped coming home even on weekends. Was his department that busy, or was it because he had somewhat advanced in his career? I had no way of knowing. Deciding that working full-time was impossible, I had resigned from my job. When I went to my workplace for the last time to complete the resignation process, I saw that a colleague had become the section manager. That should have been my desk. I felt a wave of envy clinging to me. Even though we're still friends, I felt disgusted with myself for harboring such feelings. Being quick to adapt was supposed to be my strong suit. After finishing the paperwork, I hurried back home to my beloved children, feeling like I was shaking something off. Concerned that Benjamin's earnings alone were not enough, I consulted with my mother-in-law and decided to take a part-time job as a cashier at a nearby supermarket. I would work about 5 hours, 3 or 4 days a week. And around that time, Benjamin's attitude began to change again. While I was preparing dinner, Benjamin came home and suddenly yelled out loud. "I come home tired from work and this is the meal you prepare?" I was baffled by his sudden anger. Natalie was frightened, and Olivia started crying from the loudness of his voice. "Ah, enough. Quiet her down already. What in the world are you yelling about at this time?" My mother-in-law's gentle tone, as she came to see what the fuss was about, seemed to slightly ease the situation. But Benjamin responded with a disrespectful tone. "Mom, just keep quiet. I'm disciplining her because she can't do anything right." His manner of speaking had changed as if he was a different person. My mother-in-law couldn't say anything more, just bowed her head apologetically to me and returned to her room. Wondering what the problem was, I checked the dinner dishes on the table. The only difference from usual was that there were some ready-made side dishes. "Is it about these supermarket side dishes? I got them for myself to eat." "Don't make excuses." He interrupted me mid-sentence with a shout. His fierceness was so intimidating that Natalie almost started crying again. This was getting nowhere. I decided to just endure it. After his tirade, he said as if spitting out the words, "I'm going to eat out tonight. And I'll go straight to work tomorrow," and then he left the house. It felt like the calm after a storm. Who was that just now? My husband used to be kinder, not someone who yells. In my days, I remembered what my mother-in-law had said that day. Selfish, arrogant, and emotional. Was she timing it, or did she just know? She came over and gently placed her hand on my shoulder. "I'm sorry." Her faint voice echoed emptily. All I could do was hug my two daughters. From that day, whenever Benjamin did come home, he would complain about the housework or the kids' upbringing. Yet, when in a good mood, he sought my company. The love I once had for him was gone, and it was painful, but I couldn't resist, considering our children's life. I endured this hell for 7 long years. Then I found out I was pregnant with our 3rd child. The child inside me was innocent. Olivia seemed happy about getting a new sister or brother, but Natalie, entering her teenage years, must have felt complicated. They both started to help more with the housework, concerned about my health, strengthening our bond. No matter how much I was oppressed by my husband, just having my children made me feel happy. That alone gives my life meaning. When the baby in my belly is born, I'll leave this house. I wasn't going to sacrifice any more of my life. I had confided in my eldest daughter, Natalie, and it seemed she had made up her mind as well. Meanwhile, my health was deteriorating. I had to be hospitalized for preterm labor, but who would take care of the housework? That was all I could worry about. My daughters, though becoming more independent, were still only capable of helping with chores to a certain extent. My mother-in-law, having weakened since injuring her back a few years ago, wasn't much help either. With no other option, I lowered my pride and asked Benjamin to hire a helper. It wasn't for him, but for the children. Perhaps realizing he had no other choice, he agreed to hire a helper. Being away from him for a while during my hospital stay lessened my stress, and my youngest daughter, Emily, was born safely. However, my health didn't improve much even after being discharged. At this rate, leaving with 3 children seemed impossible. I could barely move and only managed housework intermittently. Then, one day, an opportunity came. It was when I had finished preparing dinner and was waiting for Benjamin's return. Holding my youngest, Emily, I dozed off, only to be awakened by Benjamin's arrival. He suddenly raised his voice. "Hey! The husband comes home from work, and the wife is napping so carefree?" Olivia, who was watching TV in the living room, jumped up in shock, and Natalie glared at her father while comforting her sister. "Oh, I'm sorry." As I tried to stand up, I felt dizzy and staggered. Benjamin sneered at me and pulled out an envelope from his bag. "I think it's time for a lazy wife like you to leave this house." He showed me the envelope, smirking. When did he start making such a disgusting face? "Just sign this and get out." The contents of the envelope were divorce papers. Finally, the day had come. With the joy, uncertainty also crept in. With my condition, I couldn't support the children yet. Seeing my frustrated face, Benjamin laughed even more disgustingly. Agreeing easily might lead him to retract his offer. I deliberately raised my voice. "At least, let me take the children with me." I had thought he would consider the children a burden, but his response blew away my thoughts. "I can't trust someone like you with the kids." He was smirking again. He must enjoy seeing me in pain. With that in mind, I raised my voice theatrically. "Please, at least that. Let me take the children with me." I clung to his legs, pleading. Then, shaking me off, he pulled Olivia's hand and pushed her towards me. "You can take her and the baby. They're not attached to me anyway." I hugged Olivia close and looked at Natalie. "What about Natalie?" "Natalie is off limits," he said, grabbing her from behind. "No! Let her go!" Natalie struggled to escape, but she couldn't match his strength. "She's quite useful. I'll take good care of her." Handing Emily to Olivia, I tried to take Natalie from Benjamin. My body was weak, and I couldn't muster much strength. Still, I confronted Benjamin with all the force I could. This man. It seemed like he would give in to my determination, but I was no match for his strength. "Stop being so persistent. I'll pay child support for them, so just behave." With those words, he pushed me away. "Mom!" As Natalie tried to run to me, Benjamin caught her and uttered something terrible. "Hey, Natalie. If you don't obey me, who knows what I'll do to your mom." He was threatening Natalie using me as leverage. How could he? "If you care about Natalie, you'll leave right now." Leaving those words behind, he left the house. I hugged my crying children and started packing. "Mom!" Natalie looked at me with a sad expression. "I'm sorry, Natalie. I promise I'll come for you." I hugged Natalie tightly and spent our last night together. The next morning, having heard everything, my mother-in-law handed me an envelope saying, "It's not much but." It was quite thick, and realizing what it contained, I was overwhelmed with gratitude. "Mother-in-law, please take care of Natalie, please." She nodded silently, and I bowed my head, then left with Olivia and Emily. After walking for a while, I heard a voice calling from behind. "Mom!" Turning around, Natalie was running outside barefoot. I ran to Natalie and said it once more. It was also a reaffirmation of my own resolve. "I will definitely come for you." Natalie said nothing more. I took my two daughters back to my parents' home and explained everything to them. They didn't blame me for coming back, they accepted me, saying I had done well. My parents doted on the two girls, and Olivia seemed to quickly adapt to the new environment. Leaving Emily with them, I started looking for a job. I needed to rescue Natalie from that man's clutches as soon as possible. My parents understood this. I managed to find a job and filed a lawsuit to regain custody of Natalie, but it was difficult to obtain. If only Benjamin had something incriminating against him, but Natalie was excelling in school and there were no financial struggles, so the court saw no issue. I tried visiting Natalie several times, but the timing was never right or Benjamin would find out, foiling my attempts. I could only talk to her over the phone, arranged by my mother-in-law, and 3 years passed like this. One day, I received a call from Benjamin. My mother-in-law Audrey had passed away, and the funeral was over. Just a few weeks ago, I had talked to her on the phone. Detecting my sorrow, Benjamin's tone softened. "Mom's gone, and now it's just me and Natalie at home. I find myself missing the times when you all were here." I was stunned, speechless at the man who had yelled at and oppressed me now speaking like this. "I've finally understood the importance of family. Why don't you all come back home?" I decided to play along with his words. "Yes. I'd like to pay respects to my mother-in-law and see Natalie too." Benjamin sounded pleased on the other end of the phone, unaware of mine and Natalie's plan. When Natalie and I reunited, she was already 18 years old. While Olivia, now in middle school, was excited yet nervous to meet her sister after 3 years. Is she my new big sister? Emily seemed to not even remember Natalie's existence. As we hugged during our long-awaited reunion, Benjamin watched us, nodding, his eyes welling up as he said, "A family really should be together." Stepping into the familiar house, I paid my respects at my mother-in-law's photo. I still had the envelope she gave me that day and used, hoping to someday use it for myself, but that was no longer possible. Sighing softly, I heard Benjamin's voice from behind. "Mom was kind until the end," he said, sitting beside me. "I was out of my mind back then." Awkwardly, he continued talking while glancing at the daughters chatting in the living room. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I wish we could spend the rest of our lives together as a family." Those words were the same as the unforgettable proposal I heard 20 years ago. "Please spend the rest of your life with me as a family." Back then, those words made me happy, but now, they brought no joy. The man sitting beside me, now out of shape and fidgeting, waiting for my response, was he really the man I once loved? I had my doubts. Natalie sent Olivia and Emily outside to play and came over to us. I braced myself to speak to Benjamin. "I have no intention of living here with you." My blunt words surprised him. Natalie added, like the final blow, "Today, we're asking you to leave, Dad." "What?" His bewildered voice was ignored as Natalie calmly continued. The house had been inherited by Natalie after my mother-in-law passed away. The will was with a lawyer. "I am the owner of this house," she said, her voice void of emotion. She recounted how Benjamin tried to dump the housework on her after forcefully separating us, and how my mother-in-law, who couldn't stand it anymore, took over. "Grandma had to put up with your arrogance, and honestly, it was so annoying." Natalie's words flowed endlessly. Benjamin had pushed all his troubles onto Natalie and my mother-in-law while claiming to be busy with work, but in reality, he was womanizing. "You brought different women home every few months." The look in Natalie's eyes as she spoke to Benjamin was like looking at filth. While Benjamin was away, Natalie seemed to have been devising a plan with my mother-in-law. All this was done under the premise that she would live with me again. Of course, through communication with my mother-in-law and phone calls with Natalie, I was aware of the plan. After Natalie vented all her pent-up frustrations, she took a deep breath and said, "So, please pack your things and leave right away." Benjamin remained frozen, unable to move. He probably never expected his own daughter to say such things to him. His unresolved negative emotions were directed at me. "You knew about this." He glared at me. But I was no longer the person I used to be. "Yes, I knew. I knew about your infidelity even before our divorce." I could see his face turning pale. Actually, when I resigned, I had a chance to talk with a colleague who revealed that Benjamin had been lying about work and business trips to spend time with other women. My colleague from the same workplace had doubts about my words regarding his busy schedule and told me the truth. Later, she occasionally sent me photos of Benjamin's affairs. "Friends are important, aren't they?" She had become his boss by then. "Do you know where I work now?" By then, Benjamin had slumped his shoulders, unable to even look at us. "What should one have? Friends?" I was working at a law firm, doing odd jobs, thanks to a referral from that colleague. "Now, never show your face to us again." A few days later, when Benjamin's belongings were all removed, Olivia, Emily, and I returned to the house. "Is this Emily's new home now?" Emily's innocent smile was so bright. Since then, Benjamin has been living alone in an apartment. My friend, now his female boss, exposed all his adulterous acts, and there were even women who wanted to sue him. "I've always suspected something fishy since you got married," she said with a laugh. She was the person I dined with when my mother-in-law created some free time for me. Apparently, she had been tracking Benjamin's movements since the time I mentioned I might have seen him in a crowd. "I was wondering when you would finally ask for alimony." I'm truly grateful. It had been a while since I last saw her, but she was always the same. Watching Emily play in the cafe's kids area, she squinted her eyes fondly. You rejected a promotion to protect those kids, didn't you? Olivia and Natalie approached the playing Emily. Don't ever let go of your happiness again, she said before leaving the cafe. Natalie is starting college this spring, studying in the law department of a national university, possibly becoming a lawyer. Even though I work and receive alimony from Benjamin, our household still requires a lot of money. As if to fill the gap of the past years, I prepared lunchboxes for Natalie. It's embarrassing to have lunchboxes at college, she'd say, but she ate them every day. Olivia had started a new middle school but seemed happy to reunite with her elementary school friends. Emily, now a senior in kindergarten, started mimicking Natalie and Olivia's way of talking, becoming a bit cheeky. Each of the three girls was growing up bright and lively. The girls, who were once my responsibility, will eventually leave my side. But I'm sure my happiness will continue beyond that. I hope their smiles will be there too. Praying for this, I paid my respects to my mother-in-law and left for work. My name is Amelia White. I got married to my husband, Tom, when we were both 35, and we never had any children. After 15 years of marriage, one day Tom dropped a bombshell on me. I'm sorry, but I've decided to be with Ashley from now on. That means I want a divorce. To my shock, he had brought his mistress home and openly declared his infidelity. Moreover, she was more than a year younger than my husband. At this time, he was 55 years old and the mistress was 30 years old. They had apparently met at a nightclub. Grinning smugly, Ashley had the audacity to say, "Please divorce Tom. I need him in my life from now on." But you do realize that Tom is a 55-year-old man, right? Are you sure he's what you want? Don't tell me you're thinking of trying to stop our marriage? I hate to break it to you, but I'm in love with Ashley now. She's even carrying my child. What? She's pregnant? I had a sneaking suspicion that Tom was cheating, but the news of the pregnancy was a total shock. Lost for words, I watched as Tom handed me a paper. That's divorce papers. My husband's name was already written there. We're getting a divorce. I plan on starting a new life with Ashley and our upcoming child. I see. It seemed Tom and Ashley had been involved for about 2 years. Presumably, she was after Tom's money. He was the son of a wealthy family, and their estate was quite grand. He oversaw many companies and was the CEO of one of them. My in-laws had never been very fond of me. Mainly because I was infertile. Our lack of children was due to my infertility. A fact that my mother-in-law never hesitated to criticize me for. I had considered divorce in the past, but after 15 years together, it was hard to take that final step. Ashley, utterly oblivious to who Tom really was, looked at me with a smug smile. I hope you'll divorce Tom. He seems eager to be rid of you, doesn't he? Sure. I don't mind divorcing, but you do realize there are things you need to take care of first, right? Are you talking about alimony? Don't worry, Tom's rich. He can afford it. She boldly stated this while latching onto Tom's arm. As if to show off to me, she pressed her body close to him. And there he was, grinning foolishly as if enchanted by her youthfulness. Seeing my husband, well into middle age, fawning over a younger woman made my skin crawl. I had known for quite some time that Tom's affection for me had waned considerably. Years ago, he started becoming cold and aloof toward me. How about going on a trip for our anniversary this weekend? Huh? It's not worth celebrating that much, plus I'm swamped with work. I don't want to waste my time on a trip with you. I thought a trip might be a nice break for us. If it's about going on a trip, I'd have a much better time with a young lady. Who in their right mind would go on a trip just with you? It's creepy. It's terrible to speak to your wife like that. Why would you say such cruel things? You're the one making a fuss. The trip is off the table, and I'm booked up this weekend anyway. Unlike you, I have people to meet. The Tom I knew from the past always made time for me no matter how busy he was, and he certainly never would have spoken to me in such a harsh manner. What could have changed him so much? Back then, the thought that my husband was already cheating on me seemed surreal, but that was probably the case. Gradually, I noticed his affection for me waned, and I believe he was becoming infatuated with a younger woman. In the early days of his coldness, I often found myself too shocked to sleep. But now, I feel absolutely no sadness. I was practically counting down to our divorce, so it didn't come as a shock at all. I don't mind getting divorced, but make sure you pay that alimony, okay? If you promise that, I won't mind signing the papers right away. You're so hung up on money, huh? Were you only after my wallet when we married? Don't put me in the same category. So, you're going to pay the alimony, right? Fine. If you want to divorce that badly, I'll pay whatever you want, he conceded. Then let's go ahead with it. Despite his relaxed smile, I doubted he had any clue about what lay ahead of him. After that, I signed the divorce papers in front of both of them. Then, my husband stepped away for a moment to inform his parents of the news. Left alone with his mistress, she boldly said to me, "I'm on cloud 9 having snagged a wealthy man. Just so you know, you can't change your mind later, okay? And no stalking or anything. It's totally off limits. I wouldn't stoop to such shameful behavior." "Well, I'm sure you'll have your hands full, but do your best," I politely chided. "Don't worry, I'll do even better than necessary," she replied, oozing confidence. She was clearly lost in her own fantasy. I knew a secret about my ex-husband, but chose not to share it with her. Following that, our divorce went through quickly. I'd spent 15 years with my ex, but I felt no lingering sentiment. Post-divorce, I moved out of our former house and into an apartment. I got used to living alone surprisingly quickly. Rumor had it that my ex and his mistress had a lavish wedding with around 300 guests. What they do with their lives is none of my concern. I was enjoying mine. 3 months after parting ways with my ex, I accidentally ran into his mistress, Ashley. She seemed quite cheerful, eyeing the offerings at a designer shop. I tried to ignore her and leave, but she noticed me. Ashley approached me with a smirk. "You're the ex-wife, aren't you? What a coincidence to bump into you here. I didn't want to see you, yet here we are. You still hung up on Tom? Give it up, he's all over me now," she said confidently. "I'm sure he is. He looked happier than I've ever seen him when we split," I acknowledged her claim. "You haven't given up on Tom, have you? We even have a loving son now, so you'd better cut your losses." "Don't worry, I have no love left for him," I assured her, and I meant it. But Ashley seemed to think I was putting up a front. "You must be upset to let such a rich husband slip away. You have no idea." "What are you talking about?" Judging by her behavior, it seems like Ashley truly doesn't know anything. I had purposefully kept a secret from her. "You may be living a prosperous life now, but I wonder how long that happiness will last." "What are you talking about? You know Tom here is a tycoon's son, right? Plus, he's running the company, and all sorts of CEOs celebrated our wedding with us." Seeing Ashley bragging with such triumphant smiles seemed somewhat comical to me. "Hey, what's with you since earlier? That smirking is creeping me out." "I get it. Tom dumped you and it broke your mind, right? I'm perfectly normal, thank you. Even though you say that, you're dying to cry right now, aren't you?" As Ashley laughed out loud, I decided to enlighten her with a certain truth. "I forgot to tell you something important. That family actually." "What about Tom and his family? You seem to know nothing about the Brown conglomerate." "Well, I don't really understand complicated stuff. But I've heard they manage a bunch of companies, and Tom has been entrusted with running quite a significant one. It might be a bit complex for you, but the thing is, about 90% of the companies under the Brown conglomerate are deep in the red and in a dire situation." "What? Red means they are in debt, right?" "Well, yes, that's the gist of it. Your father-in-law and Tom have such personalities that they've lost trust. I've heard that the number of companies willing to do business with them is decreasing yearly. What is that? The Brown conglomerate had about 20 companies under its umbrella. Half of them were on the brink of bankruptcy. Only 1/10 of these enterprises were profitable, and even those were barely making it. Without any companies willing to lend a hand, the Amelia conglomerate was burdened with debts amounting to hundreds of millions. The conglomerate's shaky management started about 5 years into my marriage. Since then, there's been no turn toward profitability, and the management situation has only worsened. When the business started struggling, my ex-husband faced a lot of stress at work, and our marital relationship rapidly deteriorated. Every encounter ended in a fight, and naturally, he stopped contributing to household expenses. Ashley turned pale as she learned the truth about the Brown conglomerate. She was visibly shaken, but she seemed to refuse to believe it. But, Tom works as a president, and the company is making money, right? He's always giving me expensive presents. The company Tom managed went bankrupt before he married you. What? But he told me he runs a company. He must have lied to impress you. He's always been concerned about appearances. As I revealed the truth, Ashley was speechless, her eyes widened in shock. I decided to tell her another fact she was probably unaware of. Most of the people who attended your wedding were just actors pretending to be important CEOs. You said there were many big shots there, but I can't imagine major company presidents actually attending your wedding with Tom. You wouldn't know. You didn't come to the wedding, so how could you say that? Actually, a friend of mine was at your wedding. She works in the same industry as my ex and told me all about it. A few of my acquaintances had attended their wedding. They seemed to be attending out of curiosity about what kind of ceremony it would be. I was surprised to hear from them that even actors were hired to stage the wedding. It seemed the employees were also aware that my ex left me because he got Ashley pregnant. They must have found excuses not to attend the ceremony. He must have been desperate to marry her, even if it meant hiring actors. The in-laws, too, were desperate not to let the younger woman slip away. Ashley's eyes were wide open as she took in the truth. Yet, she couldn't fully accept that her husband didn't have money. But we live in a luxury high-rise, and Tom pays the full rent, so how can we be out of money? You're just bitter because he left you for me, aren't you lying? I'm not lying. Everything I've told you is the truth. I won't be fooled. I can't believe that Tom has no money. But are you okay? Shouldn't you not be shopping right now? And why not? Well, weren't you just a housewife when you married to Tom? What if you haven't found a job yet? What will you do when the alimony runs out? What are you talking about? I'm employed. Ashley seemed to be under the impression that I had continued to be a housewife after getting married. Perhaps my ex had fed her some false information, too. I didn't find it amusing that she was mistaken about me, so I decided to set the record straight. I run several restaurants, actually. And yes, I'm the current CEO as well. Wait, the president? But in this day and age, anyone can become a president, right? I bet it's not even a big company, huh? You've been frequenting that upscale French restaurant in the next town over, haven't you? Are you talking about the French place near the station? Yes. As it turns out, that's one of the restaurants I own. What? That place is like super upscale French dining where celebrities go, isn't it? If you think I'm lying, just look up my name online. I'm pretty sure you'll find it right away. Then Ashley starts looking it up right then and there. Being young, she's quick at searching. It seems she has realized that what I've been saying is true. Ashley is looking at me with wide eyes. Do you own other famous restaurants too? And I've been to those places. Thank you for patronizing them. But I'm curious, Ashley, how is it okay for you to be out at a restaurant with another man when you've got Tom at home? And you seemed quite close to that man, too. How do you know about that? Did an employee tell you? I'm the president, but sometimes I help out at the restaurants. It was one of those times that I happened to see you. After dinner, you went into a nearby hotel with that man, didn't you? What? You watched that far? That's creepy, almost like stalking. Even after being caught in an affair, Amelia doesn't seem to sense any danger. What's more, she starts with this. I'm still in my 30s, you know? I don't think an older woman like you would understand, but I've still got time to have fun. Plus, unlike you, I'm confident in my looks. That doesn't make it right for a married woman to have an affair, though. Wouldn't that be bad if Tom found out? No worries. He should feel lucky he got to marry me. Realistically speaking, there's no way I'd marry a 55-year-old man at 30, right? I see, so love was never part of the equation for you. Can you seriously look at a man 25 years your senior as a romantic partner? If he didn't have money, I wouldn't have chosen a man like that. Well then, just so you know, that man is drowning in debt to the tune of millions. I doubt the lifestyle you're used to will be sustainable for even another year. I'm pretty sure Tom will eventually come clean to you about it. Is that debt stuff really true? It's the truth. I knew about the debts when I was married to him. And yet, it's surprising how he managed to pay the alimony. What? Ashley was not ready to believe it, but gradually, her composure began to crumble. After hearing so much, even she seems to feel she has to believe it. Is what you're saying really true? You might not believe anything I say, so why not ask Tom directly? He might try to cover it up, but... I think it's a lie, but I'll ask Tom. If it turns out you're lying just to scare me, I won't let it slide. Ashley then finally walks away from me. I was just out to unwind with some shopping, but that encounter drained me. I was planning to enjoy some more shopping that day, but I wasn't in the mood anymore, so I finished quickly and went home. A few days after that unexpected meeting with Ashley, I got a call from someone. I had a feeling I would be hearing from them, so I decided to answer. It's you! What the hell did you tell Ashley? Because of you, she's left me. On the other end was my ex-husband, Tom. No sooner had I picked up, he started yelling at me. His attitude had not changed at all from when we got married. Isn't it rude to start a call by shouting? The rude one is you. Are you that intent on ruining our happiness? I could hear the tears in Tom's voice. Ashley leaving must have been quite a shock. He was obviously smitten with her. I just told her the truth. It would be cruel to keep her in the dark with lies, wouldn't it? Don't meddle. I'm gonna sue you for alimony. As punishment, you'll pay me $2 million. What are you talking about? You're the one supposed to pay alimony. But since I've already received a fair amount, I'm not planning on asking for more. Then give me back the alimony I paid. There was like $120,000 for the both of us, right? I could give it back, but what good will $120,000 do against millions in debt? He choked on his words after my response. The debts amounting to hundreds of millions are strictly the company's burden. Yet, if the company were to go under, some of that responsibility would inevitably fall on my ex-husband, Tom. Tom had flaunted himself as a prosperous CEO in front of Amelia, but in reality, he was a pretentious man drowning in debt. To shower Amelia with gifts, he had even taken out loans himself, which seemed to be in the range of a few $100,000. I had heard about Tom's debts from mutual acquaintances. You're pitiable, having to raise a child with all your debts. And that child might not even be yours. What are you talking about? Have you not heard anything from Ashley? What are you referring to? Ashley has a serious boyfriend, someone much younger than you, probably in his mid-30s, just like her. They often come together to the cafe I own. No way, she's been cheating on me? She told me herself. She said she never married you for love. Basically, you were just her cash cow. That's a lie, right? Tom's voice was trembling. I'm sure he was crying on the phone. After sobbing for a while, he began to bitterly complain. I worked so hard for her, and this is the thanks I get. Do you have any idea how much I've given to Ashley? That's tough. But you loved spoiling her, didn't you? Maybe you're not entirely blameless for being duped. What are you saying? It's the liar who's at fault, not the one being lied to. When you're told I love you and I want to be with you, anyone would be deceived. I was dumbfounded by his attempts to justify himself. How had I ever spent 15 years with such an idiot? I wanted to demand my precious time back. As I was seething with exasperation, Tom continued. I'm stuck doing grunt work every day. I had to keep up the pretense of being a CEO for Ashley. The Brown family business does seem to be struggling quite a bit. Exactly. My father has me running errands all the time, and the employees don't show me any respect. Some don't even greet me. I think it's bad not to greet people, but the staff knows what you've done. And it seems your divorce and subsequent marriage to a younger mistress is common knowledge. Why should I be criticized by outsiders for who I choose to marry? Besides, I'm still their superior. I can't help you with that. It's the result of your own actions. Can't you at least comfort me a little? Why should I console an ex-husband who cheated on me? Have you forgotten what you did to me? About that. Tom's voice faltered. Perhaps he felt some remorse for cheating. Not that I planned to help him, but I made an offer. Seems like you're planning to leave her anyway, right? Why don't I send you evidence of her infidelity? You have that? Yes. I thought it might come in handy, so I've taken photos of them together. I have a picture of them entering a hotel, which should be sufficiently incriminating. That would really help. You always were competent, Lisa. You're living up to being my ex-wife. That's what I always liked about you. Don't say weird things. I'm only helping because I want her to experience hell, not because I want to help you. Then Tom, misunderstanding, said, You must still have feelings for me. It was just as Amelia said. I'm sorry for betraying you even though you cared so much. What? How do you figure that? If you're willing to help me, it means you still have some feelings for me, right? Despite everything, you loved me, you took care of our home. That's not it. I just stopped expecting anything from you. Why bother if it's just going to lead to an argument? I didn't want the extra stress. Stop with the creepy misunderstandings, please. I meant every word. Yet, Tom seemed convinced I was playing coy. I know what you care about me the most. The betrayal from Amelia has opened my eyes. From here on out, it's just you I'll look at. What? I have no intention of getting back together with you. I'm satisfied with my life as it is now. Work's been going well since I left you. When I was living with my ex-husband, domestic issues often added stress to my life and impacted my work performance negatively. I ended up causing my employees undue worry, and I still feel extremely apologetic about it. I'm immensely grateful for the employees who stayed with me despite how unstable I was. Nowadays, I'm not troubled by family matters and can throw myself into my work. My business is thriving partly thanks to my supportive team. My ex-husband knew my company was prospering. Amelia's company's making a profit, she must be living pretty well, huh? Well, I've got more disposable income now than when I was with you, so I'm living decently. So why don't you help me out? Huh? Why the heck should I assist an ex who betrayed me? We were together for 15 years. I need you now. Ashley betrayed me, I've no clue what to do. I don't believe I can manage on my own. That's none of my concern. I'll hand over proof of your affair, but you're on your own after that. Get a lawyer, I'm sure it'll go smoother. Then he started sobbing over the phone. I involuntarily sighed. You know, I should be the one crying. Did you forget all you put me through? I realized cheating was wrong. But I also got played. To give her love and money and be treated like this, it's just too harsh. Are you dumping me now because I'm broke? I never married you for your cash. I fell for the person you used to be, hardworking and shining, and you treated me so well. Then I'll work hard again, like before, he promised. No way. I can't start over with someone who's crossed me once. Just deal with your own mess, will you? If not, she'll just take all your money and you'll end up pitiful. I'll send you the proof later and I'm going to block you. I doubt we'll talk again, I concluded and hung up. Wait! I still don't have enough to tell you. I don't have anything. Goodbye, I said and hung up. After blocking his number, my former in-laws called. But I figured they didn't deserve a moment of my time and kept them ignored. They have no idea where I've moved. My new apartment's security is airtight, so even if they showed up, they couldn't get in. I'm almost certain I'll never see or talk to my ex and his family again. Months passed and word got around that my ex and Ashley divorced. He demanded alimony for her adultery. And also repayment for money she took from his premarital savings. Turns out, the child she had wasn't actually his, but belonged to her real sweetheart. After some doubts about the child's paternity, my ex had a DNA test done. Ashley tried to pin her child on him but ended up taking the child herself. She hoped to live with her main squeeze, but he had another woman. After the split, she couldn't be with him and found herself raising the kid solo. She seems to be in a state of isolation from both of her parents, and is desperately trying to raise her child by herself. Meanwhile, my ex-husband left the condo he shared with his mistress and moved back into his parents' home. Despite previously residing in a mansion, financial troubles forced my in-laws to sell. Now, they're in a decent rental, setting them back around $2,000 a month. My ex is still stuck in grunt work and seems to be burning the candle at both ends. Me? I'm sailing smoothly in my career and living up a satisfying single life. I'm lucky to have a bunch of single pals, so loneliness is a stranger to me. It's time to drop the baggage from my ex and dive into life's next act. I'm so glad the baby was born safely. I'm sorry I couldn't do anything. It's not like that. Just having you, Nathaniel, is enough. Let's secure our happiness together. I felt terribly nauseated by those words. But I couldn't just leave things this way. I finally reached for the door. I knocked lightly and opened it. Hey, who do you think is the father of this baby? I entered the hospital room, reacted to Mirabelle's words, and looked up. Who could it be? Someone we know, maybe? What do you think, Christina? Nathaniel interrupted our conversation in a panic. For some reason, both the arrogant Mirabelle and the flustered Nathaniel seemed ridiculous, and I spat out. Of course, we know him. Congratulations, be happy. Make that child happy together. Then, I left the hospital room, leaving Nathaniel behind. Surely, they will receive their comeuppance. There's no way they could be happy after making someone else miserable. I was on my way to prepare a new future for them. My name is Christina Manson. I'm currently a 37-year-old housewife. I was born and raised in a rural area in Nebraska. I have one younger sister. I grew up happily as the eldest daughter in a very ordinary family. After graduating from high school, I worked as an office clerk in a local company. It wasn't flashy, but I spent my days happily and earnestly. Then, while working, I was introduced to my husband, Nathaniel Maruyama. Nathaniel was the son of the president of a client company. He was 3 years older than me and seemed too good for me. The executive who introduced Nathaniel to me said to his father, the president, Christina is serious and accurate in her work. She's also well regarded by our clients for her kindness. If a man who rarely praises anyone says that, she must be a wonderful young lady. My father-in-law took a liking to me from the first meeting. Nathaniel also liked me, and we started dating, leading to our marriage when I was 33. I quit my job and became a full-time housewife. Everyone celebrated my new life. But there was one person who didn't. That was my sister, Mirabelle. Mirabelle, 10 years younger than me. She was a much-awaited second child born to my mother after fertility treatments. As such, she was doted on and spoiled by the family. Of course, I also adored Mirabelle. I want to eat pudding. This is yours, isn't it, Christina? Mirabelle, you had yours yesterday. It's okay, let her have it. That's how it always was, letting her get away with a little selfishness. Because of that, Mirabelle developed a personality quite opposite to mine, becoming quite the charmer. She always able to express her opinions clearly, for better or worse. I don't want your hand-me-downs, they're so out of style. I don't want to wear them. When she was in elementary school, she would refuse to wear my old clothes, causing trouble for Mom. Truth is, our family wasn't exactly wealthy, rather on the lower middle class side. Even though all my clothes were hand-me-downs too, I never complained, no matter how much I disliked them. It's not like Mirabelle shouldn't complain just because I didn't, but I think learning to be patient is important. They're not out of style. They might be a bit old, but they're still wearable designs. Whenever I tried to argue back, she'd sassily retort, "You're just too unfashionable to realize how lame those clothes are." Sure, I might not have been the most stylish, but the new clothes I did get were always worn with care, and Mom kept them in good condition. Since I wasn't into flashy stuff, my wardrobe consisted mostly of timeless, basic items from untrendy brands. I thought they would be perfectly fine for Mirabelle too. But obviously, she just didn't like the idea of wearing my hand-me-downs. Still, as sisters bound by blood, our tastes were unknowingly quite similar, and the things Mirabelle would buy were often the same items I had, just in different colors. Yet, because of her cuteness, both our parents and I ended up spoiling her. Her whims escalated as she entered high school. She'd demand more allowance and buy anything she wanted right away, be it makeup or bags. If she didn't want to go to school, she'd skip. If she wanted to go out, she'd be out all night. At this point, our parents weren't just indulging her, they scolded her numerous times. We had to go out looking for her in the middle of the night more than once or twice. Even if Dad and Mom refused to give her allowance, she'd run off to our unsuspecting grandparents and wheedle money out of them. No amount of lecturing or restrictions could change Mirabelle, who'd been free-spirited since she was little. I'm the one who spoiled Mirabelle. What if she keeps skipping and ends up dropping out? Mom felt responsible for Mirabelle's behavior, but Mirabelle did manage to graduate high school. And even found a job. We were all relieved, but shockingly, she quit after just a month. "There's this stinky old man there," she said, as if that was a good enough reason to quit. Afterwards, she drifted between various part-time jobs, and now at 23, she seems to have settled down a bit. She became an adult now, so my parents and I didn't say anything to her. She's been working steadily for the past 2 years without quitting. Maybe she's finally learned a bit about personal responsibility and has calmed down. But then, upon my marriage, she suddenly wanted to quit her job too. Isn't it unfair, just you? Marrying the son of a CEO and becoming a housewife, I'm so jealous. That was Mirabelle's first reaction when I announced my marriage. Being a housewife doesn't mean I won't do housework, and I'm planning to do some uncompensated company work from home. Even when I explained this, the idea of quitting her job seemed irresistibly appealing to her. House chores are over in a flash, and company work is just a few minutes, right? I can't slack off, though. Well, having a father-in-law who's a CEO must mean a lot of family obligations, right? It seems like you'll never have a moment's rest. Mom took my side, but there was no way Mirabelle would be convinced. It's just a matter of patience until your in-laws are gone. In a few years, you'll be the CEO's wife, won't you? How can you say something like that? I was deeply offended by Mirabelle's remarks. Seeing me upset, Mirabelle laughed it off, saying, "Just kidding." But I wasn't in the mood to laugh, and our parents were just as stunned by her comment. Mirabelle's childish, self-centered words were too much for everyone. Yet, after a while, she actually quit her job. "I quit my job, so I'll start doing the housework tomorrow. I'm gonna be a housewife." We were all taken aback by her sudden declaration, having never helped Mom before. I was planning to get married and leave home in a few months, but I felt sorry for my parents who had to continue living with Mirabelle. I can't believe she really quit her job. When I expressed my dismay, my parents just gave a wry smile. We thought she had settled down, but Mirabelle is still a child at heart. She's okay now, but what's she planning to do in the future without a steady job? While they believe in personal responsibility, my parents couldn't help but worry. Well, let's just hope Mirabelle doesn't cause Christina any trouble. Yes, you have to be happy and not let Mirabelle affect you. In the end, I couldn't do anything about Mirabelle's newfound enthusiasm for housewifery and left to get married. Despite moving out, I couldn't stop worrying about my family back home. My in-laws were kind, and life was comfortable, but being a housewife was harder than I expected. Besides house chores and work, there were relative gatherings and preparing gifts for company events, all of which were overwhelming. Even though we lived separately, my mother-in-law would often come over to teach me things, saying, "It must be tough marrying into this family, right?" No, I understand because it was hard for me too. But let's take it easy and not overdo it. If you try too hard, you'll run out of breath. My mother-in-law always taught me with a smile and understood the challenges a daughter-in-law faces. My friends said it sounded tough, but my mother-in-law always looked out for me, even preparing meals while I was busy learning my new job. I was deeply moved by how fortunate I was to have such wonderful in-laws. My parents are really happy that Christina became my wife. Nathaniel said that too. Gradually, I started to blend in as a daughter-in-law in this family. Then, 2 years into our marriage, I was blessed with our long-awaited first child. My in-laws were overjoyed. Nathaniel seemed excited about the baby's arrival too. However, I had a concerning thought opposite to this joy. Nathaniel's suspicious behavior. He would take his phone to the bathroom, and his business dinners increased suddenly. Recently, we had less face-to-face time. With his reduced time at home, I worried he might be tired and once commented, "You seem really busy lately." Being the CEO soon, I'm swamped with constant calls and appointments. But Nathaniel gave a predictable reply and returned to his phone. Since getting pregnant, I've been feeling increasingly anxious about Nathaniel not being around. Then one day, I started to suspect he might be having an affair. It happened when I saw him on his phone. He was smiling more than usual for a work call. That expression unsettled me. Suddenly got a call, I need to go out. Sure enough, Nathaniel approached me immediately after that look. Right now? Yeah, that president always calls at the last minute. You go ahead and sleep. With that, Nathaniel left the house in a hurry. I thought it was unbelievable. What urgent matter could there be at this hour? Seeing my husband leave in the middle of the night while I was pregnant woke me up. I decided to hire a detective for the sake of our unborn child and to get Nathaniel to realize what he's doing. After some time, my parents called me. "Mirabelle's been taken to the hospital. Come quickly." I was shocked by their call. Hearing she was taken to the gynecology department, I thought she might have ovarian torsion, so I rushed to the hospital. Is Mirabelle's checkup done? Is she okay? I found my parents in the waiting room at the hospital and asked them. It turns out she's pregnant and she's started labor. What? I exclaimed in surprise at my mother's words. She didn't realize until now? Mirabelle had regular checkups, but we didn't hear anything about it. I didn't show much during my pregnancy either, and Mirabelle's belly didn't seem to show much either, so we didn't notice. I instinctively touched my own belly. Indeed, I'm not the type with a noticeable belly either. But can it really happen that nobody notices a pregnancy until the last month? It's no use thinking about that now, though. Soon after, I heard a healthy baby's cry, bringing a momentary relief before other concerns emerged. The question now was, how to raise this child. Mirabelle, an unmarried self-proclaimed housewife without a job. And we didn't even know who the father was. But right after giving birth, it wasn't the time to ask Mirabelle such questions, so I went home after seeing the newborn's face. Mirabelle had a baby. I told Nathaniel when I got home. Really? Mirabelle's a mom now? Nathaniel seemed surprised but smiled happily. Can I go see her too? How about we go together this weekend? I only saw the baby briefly today, so I'm planning to visit again. All right, I'll try to rearrange my work schedule, Nathaniel said, immediately fiddling with his phone. It's all lies about work adjustments. But I hoped seeing Mirabelle's child might make him change. Then, on the weekend, Nathaniel and I went to visit Mirabelle in the hospital. Right before entering the hospital, my phone rang. It was from the detective agency. It wasn't good to answer with Nathaniel around. Sensing my hesitation, Nathaniel asked, "Is that a call? Can I go ahead?" It seems he is looking forward to seeing the baby, which makes me feel relieved. "Yeah, I'll be there soon, this call won't take long." I said goodbye to Nathaniel and answered the call. After the call, feeling gloomy, I headed to the hospital room. Then I heard voices from inside. "I'm so glad the baby was born safely. I'm sorry I couldn't do anything." "It's not like that. Just having you, Nathaniel, is enough. Let's secure our happiness together." The call I had just received made those words nauseating to me. But I couldn't just leave. I finally reached for the door, knocked lightly, and opened it. "How are you feeling, Mirabelle?" "Sis, you came." "Of course, I did." Nathaniel was holding the baby and looking happy. "I gave birth first, huh? He's healthy and cute, right? I wonder what your child will be like, Christina." Indeed. It seemed Mirabelle wanted to one-up me. Her tone irritated me, but I kept my response short, not wanting to rise to the bait. Then, perhaps frustrated that I didn't react, Mirabelle spoke more forcefully. "Hey, who do you think is the father of this baby?" I looked up, reacting to her words. Who could it be? Someone we know, maybe? What do you think, Christina?" Nathaniel hurriedly joined our conversation. Both Mirabelle's arrogance and Nathaniel's panic seemed ridiculous to me, and I retorted, "Of course, we know him. Congratulations, be happy. Make that child happy together." "Christina, I'm leaving now. Are you going already?" "Wait, please." Nathaniel, trying to follow me, hastily laid the baby on the bed but was stopped by Mirabelle. "What? If you knew, then that's great. Nathaniel, you're lucky." Nathaniel was flustered, frozen by Mirabelle grabbing his clothes. I left him there and headed straight for the detective agency. The call I received earlier was to inform me that the evidence was ready. The detective hesitantly added, "Actually, we've seen a woman familiar with the gynecology clinic about 10 minutes west of your house, accompanied by Nathaniel." It was the very clinic where Mirabelle gave birth. As much as I didn't want to believe it, Mirabelle always wanted what was mine. The earlier conversation confirmed my suspicions. Nathaniel was definitely having an affair with Mirabelle. After collecting the evidence from the detective agency, I went to my in-laws' house. Nathaniel has a child. "A child? What do you mean? Isn't it too early for our grandchild?" Confused, my in-laws tilted their heads. "Yes. The child is not mine. Please look at this." I handed them the evidence I received from the detective agency. As they looked at it, their faces turned pale. After realizing everything, they were full of apologies. "I had no idea it would come to this." My mother-in-law was in tears, almost bowing her head to the floor. "Mother-in-law, please lift your head. I'm not here to ask for an apology from you too. But I cannot forgive Nathaniel. I think it's going to end in divorce." "I see. A wonderful woman like you, Christina, being saddened like this, we as his parents can't forgive him either. We truly are sorry. We'll do anything we can to help." "Thank you." I felt a deep relief knowing my in-laws were understanding. The divorce seemed like it would go smoothly. After our conversation, their anger turned towards Nathaniel. "What on earth is Nathaniel thinking? We need to talk to him right away." My father-in-law said that, and immediately started calling Nathaniel. As soon as the call connected, he shouted loudly. "I've heard everything from Mirabelle. What is this about? Come and explain." "It's a misunderstanding, listen to me." Nathaniel sounded panicked over the phone. His pitiful voice leaking from the smartphone made me chuckle, but there were no smiles on my in-laws' faces. "All right. We'll hear everything, just get here quickly." "Sorry, I'll be there right away." His voice was almost like a scolded child. Imagining his face, I let out a small laugh. Not wanting to face Nathaniel, I went home right after and started packing. The house was a wedding gift from my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law had furnished it for me. I didn't want these gifts from my in-laws to be taken by Mirabelle after the divorce. When I shared my feelings, my in-laws said, "Of course. We gave that house and furniture to you, Christina. But we understand if you don't want to live there. We have an apartment closer to the station, so move there for now." Thank you. They arranged a new home and moving company for me. Thanks to my in-laws, I moved out quickly. Nathaniel seemed to be grounded at his parents', not even allowed to go to work. My mother-in-law kept me updated about his situation. About a week later, I finally got a call from Nathaniel. "Christina, I finally got to call you. Mom took my phone, why are we getting a divorce? There's nothing to discuss. How can we continue our marriage when you have a child with another woman? It was just a fling with Mirabelle. I didn't expect her to get pregnant. Anyway, I'm on my way home, let's talk." "Don't leave, stay there," Nathaniel said in a rushed tone and hung up, but I couldn't help but laugh. I had already moved out. Where on earth was Nathaniel heading to? Then, just a few minutes later, predictably, Nathaniel called again. "What do you mean? Why is the house gone?" His foolish voice made me laugh as I answered. "I've already sold the house. The new owner plans to turn it into a parking lot." "That's outrageous. That house is in my dad's name." Of course, I got their permission. The day I moved out, I disposed of your things. So, there's no house for you anymore. Just go back to your parents' house quietly. After I moved out, my father-in-law sold the house. I was grateful for his help. As I told Nathaniel, the new owner planned to turn it into a parking lot, and the house was demolished a few days ago. I went to see it being torn down. I thought I might feel sad, but watching the house being demolished with loud noises, I felt relieved. So, we really can't go back now. Nathaniel's probably standing where the house used to be. His voice sounded weak and desperate. He was just being stubborn, not accepting the inevitable. If he regretted it so much, he shouldn't have cheated in the first place. "Stop being so persistent. Reflect on your actions back at your parents' place." Nathaniel must have escaped from his parents' scolding, but now he had nowhere else to find solace. He had destroyed it himself. That night, I received a call from my parents. Mirabelle is claiming Nathaniel is the baby's father, but that must be a mistake, right? Apparently, Mirabelle had been saying that since her discharge from the hospital, but my parents had ignored it, thinking it impossible. However, as she persisted, my mother called me, wondering if it might be true. "I hate to ask you this, Christina. But what Mirabelle is saying is true. I'm planning to divorce Nathaniel." "No way." "I've already informed Nathaniel's parents and they're arranging a new place for me. I'll start discussing the divorce soon." My mother sounded like she was crying on the phone. She apologized several times, saying Mirabelle is sorry for what she did, which brought tears to my eyes. My mother seemed to feel responsible for her actions. Despite being an adult, Mirabelle probably couldn't imagine how her actions hurt others. "Don't worry about anything, Mom." I reassured my parents and ended the call. Then, with my in-laws present, we began discussing the divorce. I was wrong. I fell for Mirabelle's temptation. Nathaniel seemed not to want a divorce, apologizing repeatedly, but his words didn't resonate with me. "If you truly feel sorry, will you marry Mirabelle?" That's impossible. The baby is born now, and Mirabelle can't raise a child alone. You need to take responsibility. Nathaniel fell silent at my words, unable to respond. My father-in-law sighed deeply. Christina, we will support the child you're expecting. Nathaniel, fulfill your obligations to Christina's sister and the child. Nathaniel reluctantly signed the divorce papers after being told this by both me and his father. I hope he reflects on his actions and how they led to this situation. After our divorce, Nathaniel remarried Mirabelle and began living with his parents. The house was gone, so they had no choice but to live together. By that time, I was in my final month of pregnancy but living comfortably in the house my in-laws had prepared for me. I'm sorry for taking Nathaniel away. Mirabelle messaged me, but I ignored it. Responding to Mirabelle now could harm my health. But probably, this was exactly what she wanted. I wonder what kind of child your sister will have. Cousins, but more like siblings, isn't that funny? Well, I'm younger and prettier, so my child will surely be better. She kept sending such insensitive messages. And hey! I haven't received a baby shower gift from you yet. Frustrated by her continuous messages, especially about a baby shower gift, I finally replied. Are you at home? I'll come over right now. I had ignored her for so long, but this message pushed me to visit Nathaniel's house. How are you, Christina? My mother-in-law greeted me warmly, showing concern even after the divorce. That day too, they welcomed me warmly to their home and invited me in right away. Is Mirabelle here? Nathaniel is off today, so she's probably around. My mother-in-law hesitated a bit, clearly uneasy. With a smile, I said, Great. I've brought a baby shower gift for Mirabelle and Nathaniel. I entered and sat in the living room. My mother-in-law called Mirabelle. Mirabelle held the baby and looking content. She had no idea what was about to unfold. She looked at me with a mocking smile. Finally brought the baby shower gift? Well, we aren't short of money. I handed her a thick envelope. The envelope was so thick. It was too big to contain cash, making Mirabelle frown. What's this? I didn't plan to give it, but this is my gift to you. Mirabelle cautiously handed the baby to Nathaniel and opened the envelope. As she looked through the papers, her face turned pale. What is this? What do you mean by this? She shouted angrily at Nathaniel. Nathaniel looked at the documents Mirabelle was holding with a puzzled expression. And then he turned pale. I don't know anything about this. It wasn't me. It's obviously you, Nathaniel. I couldn't help but smile at their exchange. Actually, the envelope contained investigation documents from the detective. I had shown them to my in-laws, of course, but they revealed a shocking truth unknown to Mirabelle. Nathaniel had not just been unfaithful with Mirabelle. There were 4 others. Mirabelle was only the third in line. The first was a double affair with a subordinate's wife in his company. Nathaniel was really into her. According to my mother-in-law, the husband found out, and Nathaniel finally broke it off when he married Mirabelle. The second was a 20-year-old he met on an app. Incredibly, it was this girl, not Mirabelle, who accompanied him to the gynecologist. According to the detective, they were there for an abortion. And the third was Mirabelle. The fourth was a friend of Mirabelle, introduced by her. Of course, I knew all this, but by then Nathaniel was a stranger to me. Regardless of how many relationships he had, the fact that one of them was with my sister made it completely unacceptable. It was enough to make him irredeemable. I had planned to bury this information if Mirabelle sincerely apologized and reflected on her actions. However, her constant attempts to one-up me made me decide to bring her down from her high horse. You're terrible. A liar. As expected, Mirabelle went into hysterics, crying and screaming. Even though she was holding her precious baby. She cursed Nathaniel repeatedly and tried to grab him. What's all this noise? At that moment, my father-in-law returned home. Seeing me, he said happily, "Christina, you're here." Then, he glared at Mirabel and Nathaniel. "What are you doing?" shouting in front of the baby. "Father-in-law. Listen, Nathaniel has." Oh, they both know everything Nathaniel has done. I smiled at Mirabel, who had a meltdown. "Oh, that matter," my father-in-law said in a weary tone. "After all, Mirabel, you were part of the affair. Do you even have the right to blame Nathaniel?" I think only Christina has the right to blame Nathaniel. Frustrated that her parents-in-law weren't on her side, Mirabel bit her lip. "And, I've prepared a new place for the three of you to live." Eh? Mirabel's eyes lit up at my father-in-law's words despite her anger. I negotiated the rent down to $1,600 a month with a friend's company. Got it $60 cheaper. "Now, please leave this place quickly." However, upon hearing those words, despair washed over their faces. "Wait. What do you mean, leave? And why do I have to pay rent while Christina got a new house for free? You have a new job lined up too. It's a sales position at that real estate company." "A new job? You're kicking me out of the company, even though I'm the future CEO?" Both Nathaniel and Mirabel confronted my father-in-law. However, he smiled and said, "When did I ever say you were the next CEO? You just assumed that yourself. Besides, I can't keep someone in the company who gets involved with employees' families. Pack your things and leave." The two, who had been arguing, now united in their protest against my father-in-law. I was astonished by their behavior, but my mother-in-law murmured next to me, "Ever since Christina and Nathaniel divorced, your father planned to cut him off." We both really thought of Christina as part of our family. I was overjoyed by her words. And I chuckled inwardly at the divine retribution my sister and her husband faced, having lost their home, jobs, and trust. The sister and her husband moved into the house my father-in-law had prepared. Surprisingly, it was a 15-minute walk from the station. However, it was next to a pediatric clinic and just a 3-minute walk to a supermarket, ideal for raising a child. According to my parents, Mirabel complained about not being able to go out, but if there were too many temptations, she would surely squander money. I hope she earnestly tries to raise her child in the house my father-in-law found for her grandchild's sake. Nathaniel is now working in sales at a real estate company, under Mirabel's thumb. Interestingly, this real estate company is run by the family of the subordinate Nathaniel had an affair with. I don't know if the company is aware of Nathaniel's actions, but he must be feeling uncomfortable there. Moreover, with the alimony payments, Mirabel won't be able to live the luxurious life she wanted. Neither Mirabel nor Nathaniel could have imagined this life, but they brought it upon themselves. No matter what, I hope they make their child happy. I later gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Both my parents and my in-laws adore him. Though the family ties with my in-laws have been severed, we still keep in touch and I live in the apartment they arranged. I now work remotely for my father-in-law's company, which I used to do unpaid. They made me an employee and I earn enough to raise my child on my own. I may have been plain, but I've always cherished people and acted with integrity. I believe this is the result of that. I might not have been lucky with my husband, but I have a beautiful son. And I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to work from home while raising my child. I just want to go home. What happened all of a sudden? There was a call from my daughter, who was supposed to be on a field trip. It would have been fine if it was just a call, but the situation was different. Why do I have to go through this? Mom, you deceived me too, didn't you? Huh? I couldn't understand what my daughter was saying. Moreover, she was crying so hard that I could tell even over the phone. First, just calm down. I'll listen to everything. Okay. I thought something terrible must have happened and desperately tried to calm her down. For a while, I didn't press her to explain why she was crying, just waited. Then, she gradually started to talk. Mom, can you check my room for my backpack? Huh? Your backpack? Just a sec. As she asked, I looked in her backpack that was carelessly left in her room. I thought she might have forgotten something, but I gasped when I saw what was inside. What is this? Inside was something unbelievable. I immediately asked my daughter. Did you know about this? Yes. I got a call earlier. They said I'm not your real daughter. Did he really say that to you? Yes. So I thought you were deceiving me too. I couldn't believe someone would do such a thing. You are my daughter. That's the truth. Really? Yes, really. You are the child I carried in my womb. After that, I explained everything to her and made her understand. And then, anger surged within me. I immediately contacted my mother-in-law. This is how my revenge began. My name is Jolie, and I live with my middle school daughter Yvonne and my husband Harry. Harry and I are remarried. I met Harry when he came to my company as an employee of a business partner. At that time, I had just gone through a divorce and was not in a good mental state. Are you okay? Huh? Oh, sorry. I'm fine. Are you sure? You don't look too well. I'm really okay. Saying that, I escaped to the restroom. It wasn't that I disliked Harry, but I felt like he could see right through me. After that, every time he came to the office, he started to talk to me. Here, please take this if you'd like. Oh, thank you. Right, I should do something in return. No need, I'm doing it because I want to. At that time, I didn't understand why he was so concerned about me. I would find out later. Apparently, he had heard through the grapevine that I was divorced. Initially, I thought it was just sympathy. Would you like to go out for dinner sometime? Me? Yes. I couldn't understand why. There was no reason for him to choose someone like me, a divorcee. But Harry kept pursuing me aggressively. Of course, I was happy, but there was one problem. I need to tell you something first. I have a 1-year-old daughter. So, I think I might be a burden to you. I was about to say that when he interrupted. I don't mind. I'm confident I can love both you, Jolie, and your daughter. Huh? I was surprised by his sudden confession. At that time, we had only had dinner together a few times and weren't officially dating. In such a situation, he said. But his straightforward words were a pleasant surprise. Soon after, we started dating. Yvonne, I'm looking forward to being with you. It seems Yvonne is happy too. I hope so. A year after we started dating, we decided to remarry. My parents opposed it, but I managed to convince them. The only one who supported me was my mother-in-law. And when we remarried, we made one promise. Let's do our best as husband and wife from now on. Absolutely. I truly believed we could forget the past and have a happy life. But gradually, things started to change. Growth comes fast, and my daughter Yvonne began to speak little by little. Her first word was ma'am. Of course, I was happy, but Harry felt a bit different. Why doesn't she say daddy as quickly as she said ma'am? It's not something to worry about. Really? Maybe it's because I'm not her real father. I stopped Harry as he was about to continue. We promised not to talk about that. Oh, sorry. I'll be careful. When we remarried, we had agreed not to discuss until Yvonne was an adult that Harry was not her biological father. Both sets of parents and my mother-in-law knew about this. Especially my mother-in-law, she was in favor of it. I think that's best. I agree. Actually, I was remarried too. In our case, Harry was my husband's child from a previous marriage. What? Really? Yes. Harry didn't think it was necessary to say anything. But I thought it was better to tell. Understanding this was why Harry had no particular ill feelings about remarrying. I kept in regular contact with my mother-in-law, and I think our relationship was good. Yvonne was also fond of her grandma. Jolie, have you ever thought about being a stay-at-home mom? That's quite sudden. Is there a reason? Harry started talking about this after Yvonne began going to kindergarten. Oh, no. Just thought Yvonne might be happier that way. Maybe that could be true. So, is it okay? Well, considering the future, I think it's better if I work. Yeah, you're probably right. In the end, I never became a stay-at-home mom. I think it was around this time. I felt that Harry was reluctant to be alone with Yvonne. I had to work on weekends sometimes because of my shift schedule. That meant they had to spend time together. Where's Yvonne? I think she's in her room. I see. One Saturday, when I returned from work, Yvonne was playing alone in her room. A bit concerned, I asked her, "Don't you play with Daddy?" I asked him to, but he seemed not to want to. Really? I think Daddy would like to play with you. I said that spontaneously, but thinking about it, it made sense. As I pondered how to approach Harry, their relationship seemed to deteriorate rapidly. As Yvonne started elementary school and learned various things, Harry's attitude towards her became stricter. As a wife and a mother, I felt something had to change. Lately, you've been kind of cold to Yvonne, haven't you? Huh? That's not true. If anything, Yvonne is the one who's cold. Really? What, you don't believe me? It's not that, just looking at you two lately. Then Harry let out a big sigh, his face showing frustration. I'm trying my best here. If you have a complaint, tell Yvonne to speak up. I can't say that. She's just a grade schooler. Then I'll keep interacting with her as I have been. We're not done talking. Harry left the house without listening to the rest of my words. He didn't return until the next morning. Where were you? Does it matter? Just leave me alone. I didn't pursue it any further. Maybe that was a mistake. Yvonne became a sixth grader, able to think for herself. One day, she asked me, "Mom, does Dad hate me?" Why would you think that? Because he hardly talks to me, right? I was at a loss for words. I thought answering her half-heartedly could worsen Harry and Yvonne's relationship. Dad is just a bit confused because you're growing up so fast. But remember, he doesn't hate you. Really? Okay, I understand. I managed to defuse the situation, but nothing was really resolved. I decided to talk to Harry while Yvonne was out playing with friends. Harry, we need to talk. Talk? About what? Yvonne came to me for advice. She's wondering what you think of her. That topic again? Can we just drop it? Drop it? I'm tired of this. It's because she's not my biological daughter. If I had a child of my own blood. That's when I lost my temper. Is blood relation that important? Then why did you marry me? I thought I could handle it back then. But now, it's not what I imagined. It's not too late to change. It's too late. I'll do my duty as a father, but don't ask for more. Are you kidding me? What kind of attitude is that? Harry couldn't hold back either, raising his voice. This is so annoying. Please, let's never have this conversation again. You're just running away, aren't you? Running away? I've been putting up with this. I don't deserve to be spoken to like that. Harry suddenly stood up and kicked the sofa he was sitting on. I tensed up, startled. Then he glared at me. I thought he might hit me. You understand if we have this conversation again, right? Don't ever bring it up again. It was a clear threat. I shouldn't think this way, but I was prepared to be hit if it came to that. The thought of him turning on Yvonne scared me. All right, I won't talk about it anymore. Of course, I didn't really mean it. After that, not just our parent-child relationship, but our marriage hit rock bottom. Yvonne came home from school and handed me a piece of paper. Is it that time already? Eh? Did you forget? No, I didn't forget. Where are you going again? Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C.? That's nice. She must have been really looking forward to the school trip. We got excited talking about what souvenirs to get and places to visit. Then Harry, who had just returned from work, asked us, "What are you two chatting so happily about?" Yvonne and I fell silent. We were surprised because Harry hadn't initiated a conversation with us for a long time. "Why are you quiet now? It's not like that." "So? What happened?" "Yvonne is going on a school trip soon." "Oh, a school trip, huh? I see." Despite asking, his response was indifferent. The conversation ended there, and Harry sat on the sofa and started fiddling with his phone. Yvonne and I, feeling unable to continue the conversation, moved to another room. "Weren't you scared?" "A bit. He didn't seem too interested either." Yvonne sighed. "I think there could have been a better way to say it." Yvonne, now in her third year of middle school, understood Harry's attitude towards her. That's why she didn't actively try to engage with him anymore. The school trip was just a month away. "I'll be home late tonight." "Really? What about dinner?" "I don't need it." From that day on, he almost always came home late. He would always say it was because of work and refused to give more details. Moreover, he would smirk at me. "Something amusing happened?" "It's nothing worth talking about." He remained cold towards me, as always. I tried to improve our relationship, but it was all in vain. Around this time, I started to seriously consider divorce. So, I decided to consult with my mother-in-law, who had been in a similar situation. "That's certainly unthinkable. I'm thinking about a divorce, but I'm worried about Yvonne." "That's a difficult time indeed. Has Yvonne said anything?" "I haven't asked her directly, but from what I see, their relationship isn't good." "That's tough. Just remember this, I'm not on Harry's side." "That's reassuring." "If Harry says anything unnecessary, Jolie, you do what you think is best." I felt relieved I had consulted with my mother-in-law. Having such a supportive person gave me confidence. Then, the day before Yvonne's school trip. "It's Yvonne's school trip tomorrow, right?" "Yeah, but..." "What time is she leaving?" "I think it's the usual time." His sudden interest seemed odd. "Something on your mind?" "Just concerned about my daughter." "I see." Though I felt something was off, I didn't dwell on it. The next morning, Harry was up earlier than anyone. "It's unusual for you to be up so early." "Even I have those days." He seemed in a good mood. Other than that, it felt like a typical morning. Yvonne left for her trip with a big smile. As I was about to leave for work, I noticed. "Aren't you going to work yet?" It was his usual time to leave for work, but Harry was still at home. "I just need to finish up some preparations." "You go ahead." "Okay, take care of the keys then." "Sure." He seemed fidgety, so I thought he might be looking for something. Later, I realized it was for a different preparation. "I want to come home." "What happened all of a sudden?" I had thought she must be having fun with her friends. But that night, I received a call from Yvonne, who was supposed to be on her school trip. It would have been fine if it was just a call, but the situation was different. "Why am I going through this? Mom, you've been deceiving me too, haven't you?"
What? What are you talking about?
I couldn't understand what Yvonne was saying. Moreover, she was crying so hard that I could tell even over the phone.
First, just calm down. I'll listen to everything.
Okay. I thought something terrible must have happened and desperately tried to calm her down. For a while, I didn't press her to explain why she was crying, just waited. Then, she gradually started to talk. Mom, can you check my room for my backpack?
Huh? Your backpack? Just a sec.
As she asked, I looked in her backpack that was carelessly left in her room. I thought she might have forgotten something, but I gasped when I saw what was inside.
What is this?
Inside were scattered photos of her supposed ex-husband and pictures of a newborn Yvonne. I realized the reason for his fidgeting that morning was this. I immediately asked Yvonne.
Did you know about this?
Yes. I just got a call. He said I'm not your real daughter.
Did he really say that to you?
Yes. So I thought you were deceiving me too. I couldn't believe he would do such a thing. You are my daughter. That's the truth. Really? Yes, really. You are the child I carried in my womb. Anger surged within me.
So, it was Dad who called, right?
Yes. He suddenly called and said I was being deceived by you. That I'm not his real daughter and he can't love me.
How could he say such a thing?
Then, he told me to call you and ask you to look inside the backpack. What was in there?
Yeah, about that.
I hesitated, wondering if I should tell her. I feared that by telling her, Yvonne might drift away from me. Then Yvonne spoke up gently. I believe in you, Mom. Those words gave me the courage I needed. What was in the backpack was. I told Yvonne about its contents. She listened silently the whole time, which I appreciated. After I finished, Yvonne asked. Can I ask one thing? Of course, you can. Why would he do something like that? Hearing her question made me realize, indeed. I didn't understand his intentions either.
Sorry, I need to make a phone call, so I'll hang up for now.
Okay. I immediately called my mother-in-law.
Hello? I need to talk to you about something. Jolie, it's been a while. What's the matter? You sound rushed. Well, today.
I explained everything to my mother-in-law in detail.
What? That idiot did what?
Her reaction almost overwhelmed me. But I don't understand why he would do such a thing. Well, let me think. It seemed like my mother-in-law had realized something. Something strange he said the other day.
Something strange? Yes. He called me out of the blue, saying he wanted to see his grandchild. I thought it was odd because Yvonne is his grandchild, right? Maybe. Could you please let me know if you hear anything else?
Of course, I will. Thank you. I remembered something we talked about. Harry had said before about wanting his own children. I waited him to come home. I'm home. There's something I need to talk to you about.
What is it?
It's important. Harry seemed to have guessed it and was smirking. Did you look in the backpack? Yes. You did something terrible. I've reached my limit, you know? I want my own biological children.
You involved our daughter just for that.
Honestly, I never liked her. Couldn't stand the way she looked at me. I couldn't believe what he was saying.
I also talked to your mother about it.
You shouldn't have. But she probably wants to see her real grandchildren too. He really thought that way. I was so disappointed in him. At that moment, I didn't say anything.
So, there's someone else, right?
Someone else? Oh, of course. No point in hiding it now.
Is that an affair then?
You can think of it that way if you want. So you want a divorce? That's fine by me. I'll pay you alimony.
You'll regret this, you know?
It's you who will. Trying to control my anger, I asked Harry another question.
How did you get those photos?
Oh, that. I asked an acquaintance. It was tough, though.
What?
A junior of mine happens to work at the same company as your ex-husband.
What was your purpose in doing all this?
Purpose? It was just to annoy you and Yvonne.
But we made a promise, right? To keep silent until Yvonne is an adult.
Did we? I seem to have forgotten. Anyway, I won't be coming back here. With that, he left again. Probably to meet his mistress. Harry might think he's won, but he's forgotten something important. I had kept a written record of the promise we made before we got married. And then Yvonne returned from her school trip.
Welcome back.
Yeah. I'm home. Her face looked gloomy. Where's Dad?
He's left us. What? The phone call to Yvonne and the backpack thing were just to make us despair, right? What are you gonna do, Mom?
I'm sorry to say this to you, Yvonne, but I'm thinking about getting a divorce. Yvonne's expression brightened up from the gloominess before.
That's good then. You're not opposed to it? I wouldn't oppose it. He's not a father or anything to me.
Later, Harry sent over the divorce papers. Without any hesitation, I signed them. And while sending them back, I included another piece of paper.
Hey! What's this paper about?
Harry called 2 nights later.
I sent it because you seem to have forgotten. This can't be valid.
Then I heard the sound of tearing over the phone.
This makes it invalid now.
Too bad for you.
Really? You're so silly. What I sent was just a copy. Tearing it up won't change anything. What? You really went to all this trouble. What's written there is valid, so take care of it. There's no way I can pay that. That's not my problem.
The agreement we signed before getting married stated that if either of us broke the promise to not discuss remarriage until Yvonne was an adult, we'd owe $100,000. Of course, it had both our signatures and stamps.
Really a shame. With the cheating alimony included, it might go up to $200,000. You expect me to pay that?
Of course. You're the one who forgot.
Just deal with it. Hey! The conversation isn't over.
I hung up the phone right away. I ignored all his subsequent calls. Thinking about what was coming for Harry, I couldn't stop laughing. Yvonne came in, hearing me.
Why are you laughing all of a sudden? Sorry, did you hear that? You look so happy. Just had a little talk with Harry. I got a bit of revenge. Is everything okay? Of course, it's okay. Things are going to get fun now. Oh, I need to call Grandma too.
I made a call to report everything that had happened.
I just talked to Harry on the phone about the agreement we wrote before we got married. Oh, that? I bet Harry didn't even remember it. Exactly. And it's about $100,000, you know. Then, I suppose he'll be contacting me too. What do you plan to do? Of course, I have no intention of helping him. I wonder what will happen to him. We'll just have to wait and see.
As expected, Harry called my mother-in-law the next day, but she refused to entertain him. Harry ended up being abandoned by her. Soon, my mother-in-law called me, sounding pleased.
Harry just called, asking for money. Like I'd lend him anything. Figures. He's so predictable. So don't worry. I think things will be peaceful from now on. I'm truly grateful to you. It's nothing. Feel free to visit anytime. Sure. I'll bring Yvonne along.
I thought Harry would struggle from now on. By that time, our divorce was finalized. I also claimed alimony, and he had to pay $40,000. In total, he ended up with a debt of $140,000. I expected a call from Harry soon.
Should be any time now. Any time? I'm expecting a call from him. I see.
While we were relaxing, a call came in on my smartphone. It was from Harry.
Hello? You've been filling my mom's head with stuff, haven't you?
Stop making assumptions. She never trusted you in the first place.
Damn it. I've always been in touch with her, and she never spoke well of you. Damn.
So give up.
It's all your own doing.
I could hear his frustration over the phone. If he didn't want to be so upset, he shouldn't have done all this in the first place. I heard later that Harry was dumped by his mistress because of his debts. Now he was truly alone. Tough luck. Then Yvonne and I moved to a new place. Without Harry, our home became so much brighter. We decided to live a happy life, just the two of us.
Ah, you finally made it, Arya.
Jack said, a look of relief washing over his face as he turned his eyes towards me. Lying in the hospital bed, his shoulder was immobilized in a cast, which probably made it hard for him to move. He then looked up at me, who was silently staring down at him, and pleaded with a hint of impatience, "Please, could you help me clean myself?" That's just like Jack, always so concerned about cleanliness. He must have been irritated about not being able to take a bath without the doctor's permission, but I didn't feel the slightest obligation to help him. "What? After you cheated with my best friend?" I snapped coldly. Before I could add anything else, the curtain was quickly drawn aside, and there stood my best friend, Camila, saying, "What?" The other person wasn't me, while indignantly pointing to the bed behind her. And there it was. My name is Arya Davis, a 42-year-old nurse. It's been a quick 23 years since I graduated from nursing school and started working at the public hospital where I'm currently employed. Last year, I was promoted to head nurse. My days are filled with organizing skill-building workshops for my eager staff and ensuring a comfortable stay for our patients, among other duties. Naturally, my personal life often takes a back seat, with my rare days off devoted to catching up on household chores and getting some much-needed rest. Seeing me like this, my best friend Camila often scolds me, saying, "Come on, what's with that lifestyle? You're turning into a total homebody." But no matter how many times she tells me, I just nod and let it go in one ear and out the other. Maybe she's grown tired of it because lately, she's been quieter. This leaves me feeling a bit lonely, yet somehow relieved too. It's a complicated mix of emotions. However, when I unexpectedly got a day off according to the calendar, Camila invited me to join her at a mixer. Camila, like me, is also single, but she had been married once in her early 20s. Initially, after her divorce caused by her husband's infidelity, Camila used to say with a wry smile, "Oh, I'm so over marriage. I might be up for dating again, but I've had enough of marriage certificates and divorce papers." But recently, she seems to have been inspired by a senior female colleague at work, whom she admired as a role model. This colleague unexpectedly got married later in life and seemed blissfully happy. This led Camila to start thinking, maybe marriage isn't so bad after all. I'm at a good age, and I've learned how to handle the tough times, but it's kind of sad not having someone to share the happy moments with. So, she began actively participating in mixers. A mixer, huh? Well, Camila, you always look fabulous and younger than your age, so it might be good for you. But I'm just an average woman at my age, so maybe it's not for me, I gently declined. However, Camila persisted, "Don't worry. The mixers I attend always have a well-balanced age group." Given that, I felt it would be rude to always decline, so I decided to join just this once. I thought that would satisfy Camila. And it was at that mixer where I met Jack, who would become my fiancé. Jack worked at the same company as Camila and was 48 years old, 6 years my senior. He had always wanted to get married but kept putting it off because he found his work so engaging. Before he knew it, he was at his current age. I don't regret my choices, but I started thinking how nice it would be to have a partner to share life's laughter with from now on. He said with a somewhat embarrassed smile. His demeanor made me smile too, and we naturally ended up exchanging contact information. As time went by, we enjoyed meals and drinks whenever we could and took short drives to the suburbs. After about a year of dating, Jack proposed to me. By that time, I had also begun to think that spending the rest of my life with Jack would be wonderful, so I happily accepted his proposal. When it came time to meet each other's parents, especially Jack's mother, who lived quite close by, openly showed her disappointment upon learning that her son's bride-to-be was me, already past 40. Moreover, when Jack's mother inquired about the university I graduated from and my current job as a nurse, she turned to Jack's father, who was standing next to her, and said, if she were a younger bride, we could have hoped for respectable grandchildren, but well, she's a nurse, I guess she just barely passes. While Jack's mother was talking, his father was looking at her with a face like he was chewing on something bitter. I thought he might be about to scold her for such rudeness. However, to my surprise, he said, "What do you mean barely passes? Whether she's a nurse or whatever, an old lady is still an old lady." I instinctively looked over at Jack, but he just gave a wry smile, not rebuking his parents at all, and kept up his usual slightly troubled but smiling face. While this was happening, Jack's mother, looking quite pleased with herself, said to her husband, "That's where you're short-sighted, dear. If the bride is a nurse, she can take care of your mother, who's currently in a nursing home. That way, we can save on the home's costs, and even get back the initial deposit. Plus, as a wife, she can provide 24/7 care for free." Jack really has an eye for practicality. Upon hearing this, the father seemed convinced and nodded to Jack, saying, "I see what you mean. Sorry for not understanding your intentions right away." Next to him, Jack exaggeratedly sniffled and tearfully said, "As long as you understand," which was more chilling than annoying to me. Honestly, I don't clearly remember what happened or what was said after that. Stunned, I got into Jack's car and we started heading home. That's when Jack said, "So, when should we visit your parents' house? Since we're going to cut ties with them after we're married, it'll be the first and last time. Maybe we should book a fancy hotel restaurant or something." Snapping back to reality, I coldly replied, "You don't need to bother visiting my family." However, it seemed that the chill in my voice didn't register with Jack, as he cheerfully responded, "Oh, really? Well, no need for unnecessary expenses then. That practicality is also one of the reasons I thought you'd make a good wife." He seemed even more pleased with himself. I was getting increasingly frustrated and wanted to retort, but realized that I had been clenching my jaw so hard during the entire time at Jack's parents' house that I had started to develop a severe headache. So, I told him he didn't need to drive me all the way to my apartment and asked to be dropped off at a nearby station instead. Then, Jack responded, "What? No way, you have a migraine? Have you been sick all this time? Not being able to take care of yourself is the worst," and with that dismissive remark, he didn't even drive me to the station. Instead, he abruptly pulled over to the side of the road, urged me to get out, and left without a backward glance. On my taxi ride home, I gradually returned to my usual self and began to feel genuinely upset as I recalled what Jack's family had said. It was the first I'd heard about Jack's grandmother being in a nursing home, and the idea that they wanted to use me as free caregiving labor just to save money was appalling. I was angry with myself for not seeing Jack's true nature after a year of dating, but fortunately, we hadn't registered our marriage yet. Breaking off an engagement is simpler than getting a divorce. While soaking in my home bathtub, I decided to act quickly. The next day, I resolved to go to Jack's place and end this marriage talk. That night, I fell asleep determined to do so. The following day, I apologized to the hospital for the sudden change but managed to swap my shift and headed to Jack's apartment. Ideally, I should have made an appointment, but I was filled with the feeling that I didn't want to waste time talking to Jack. I figured if I visited early on a Saturday morning, I'd surely catch him at home, considering it was his day off according to the calendar. However, when I arrived at Jack's fancy high-rise, no matter how much I rang his apartment's intercom, there was no response. I sent a message on social media, but it wasn't even read. Emails and phone calls were met with the same silence. Honestly, I was a bit let down by the sudden loss of momentum, but since I had the day off, I decided to go to Jack's family home to settle things once and for all today. Jack might have stayed at his parents' home after our last encounter. Even if Jack wasn't there, I figured it would be easy to break off the engagement by simply telling his parents that I couldn't possibly be a suitable wife for their family. Fortunately, we hadn't exchanged engagement gifts or made any financial commitments like reserving a wedding venue or buying engagement rings. So, I thought that as long as we both agreed, calling off the engagement would be straightforward. Yesterday, I had just visited Jack's family home, and today I headed back there in a taxi again. But right before I got out of the taxi, I spotted Jack's parents, Jack himself, and a woman with a familiar-looking back, all four of them getting into a car. Feeling uneasy, I asked the taxi to follow Jack's car. About 15 minutes from the house, I saw them pull into the parking lot of a diner. I had the taxi pass by and then make a U-turn to come back. I got out of the taxi and headed towards the entrance of the diner. Being a weekend morning, the restaurant was fairly bustling with families enjoying breakfast and people who seemed to be heading out on a trip, probably because there was an interstate entrance nearby. While hiding behind the line of people waiting to pay, I scanned the restaurant and saw the group of 4 sitting in a booth by the window. I asked a waiter to seat me in the booth back-to-back with them. Luckily, there were several pots of artificial plants as dividers between the booths, so while I could hear everything, my presence, hidden behind the backrest, would go unnoticed unless I stood up. After quickly placing my order, I started eavesdropping. I couldn't believe it when I heard Jack's father, speaking in a completely different tone from how he had spoken to me yesterday, saying, "Well, Camila is young and sincere, and I'd be absolutely thrilled if someone like her eventually became Jack's wife. I can't wait for that day."
Camila, that Camila?
Realizing who he was talking about was a shock that turned my world dark. No wonder the young woman I glimpsed from the taxi seemed familiar. It was my best friend, Camila. She's dating Jack? Camila and Jack, co-workers at the same company, but since when? Since Jack and I started dating? Or were they already together before we met at that mixer? But then, why did Jack date me and even go as far as proposing? My mind was swarming with questions, but I tried hard to focus on the conversation next to me. What I gathered was that Jack and Camila had recently started dating, and there was already talk of marriage between them. Moreover, both Jack's family and Camila knew about the ongoing marriage discussions between me and Jack. Why on earth did they want me and Jack to get married? I began to wonder if what they said yesterday about wanting a round-the-clock, free caregiver wasn't just a bad joke. Then I heard Jack say, "I really don't want to marry that old lady, but I've heard she's quite wealthy. She'd be perfect to take care of Grandma until she passes away." Meanwhile, I can secretly continue dating Camila. Jack's parents laughed, with his father adding, "If a grandchild comes along by then, we can ask her to leave for the child's sake and get a divorce without any alimony. Actually, if we play our cards right, we might even squeeze some alimony out of her." And his mother chimed in, "That's a great plan. We could accuse her of rough handling or something during the caregiving and get an easy split." They all laughed heartily at this. Hearing this, I barely managed to contain my boiling anger towards Jack's family and Camila while still listening intently. I learned that Jack and Camila, taking advantage of the upcoming 3-day weekend, were planning a trip to a hot springs resort and spa accessible only by car. They were going to rent a 4WD from a rental car store near the diner, as their usual sedan wouldn't suffice for the remote location. Their parents had apparently driven them to the diner to see them off. Fueled by anger, I decided not to confront them there and then. Instead, I resolved to gather evidence and make them pay later. To avoid being seen, I slipped out of the diner before the 4 of them left. From a convenience store across the street, I watched through the window. Soon, Jack's parents got into their car in the parking lot and drove off home, while Jack and Camila, both wearing matching caps and pulling carry-on bags, walked away. I had checked on my smartphone's map app earlier. There was a car rental place about 650 feet from here, and they seemed to be heading there. Watching their backs with a heavy heart, I turned around and opened a ride-hailing app. I had a night shift that day due to a last-minute schedule change, so I focused on my work until Sunday morning, pushing all other thoughts aside. After my shift ended, I headed back to my apartment to get some sleep. On the way, I checked my phone and saw a surprising number of missed calls, messages, and emails. Wondering what had happened, I saw that more than 2/3 of them were from Jack, and the rest were voicemails from an unknown number. Growing more suspicious, I decided to check the answering machine and heard a message from a clerk at a hospital in the area where Jack and his friends had said they were going to a hot spring spa yesterday. The clerk mentioned, "A patient who was brought in last night after a self-inflicted car accident asked me to contact you. They urgently want you to call back." I was initially shocked and even thought maybe it was some kind of divine punishment, but more importantly, I wondered why they had contacted me. Hesitant to call Jack's cell phone directly, I looked up the hospital online and called the main line. The clerk who had left the message on the answering machine filled me in on the details. After hearing this, I quickly arranged a ticket for the next day to the nearest station to the hospital, then went to bed. The next morning, I set out early and arrived smoothly at the hospital. I killed time at a nearby cafe until the hospital's visiting hours, which I had checked in advance. When the time seemed right, I went to visit Jack's room. In the two-person room I was led to, Jack was lying on the bed closer to the door, his shoulders tightly bandaged and his left leg in a cast. He smiled weakly and said, "Arya, I can't believe you came all this way, thank you," as he noticed me entering, barely moving due to the pain. I knew he was probably trying to gain my sympathy, but I was well aware of his tricks. As I stood there silently, Jack, growing anxious, tried to start various conversations, but I gave no reaction and just ignored him. Finally, showing some irritation, Jack said, "Please, help me wipe down," and nodded towards a table beside him where a thin towel, apparently bought from the hospital shop and still in its bag, was placed. I glanced briefly at Jack, but as I continued to stand silently, he grew more irritated and snapped, "Come on, just do it already. What's your deal?" while clicking his tongue in dissatisfaction. I strode over to his bed, leaned towards him, and said coldly, "What? After cheating with my best friend?" Before Jack could say anything, the curtain separating the beds was pulled back with a swish. "Hey, it wasn't me," said Camila, pointing to a woman lying on the bed behind her, shrinking back. "This guy's affair partner is her," she informed me. I was momentarily stunned by Camila's sudden appearance and the unknown woman lying in the bed. But Jack, seizing my reaction, yelled at Camila, "What the hell are you doing? Don't spread lies. Get out of here." He tried to throw pillows and a water bottle at her in a fit of rage. A few nurses and I had to restrain Jack, who glared at Camila with frustration. Camila remained calm amidst the chaos. When I hesitantly mentioned, "That woman over there, she kind of looks like you, with the same hairstyle and build. So, are you not Jack's affair partner?" Camila's face turned bright red. "You can't be serious. You didn't think I was the one, did you?" she retorted, to which I timidly replied, "Sorry, I thought so." She sighed loudly and said, "That's ridiculous. I'm not that bad." Ignoring a suddenly silent Jack and the other woman, Camila explained. About 2 months ago, she had accidentally seen Jack and Camila walking arm in arm through the city at night. Knowing from me that Jack and I were dating, she thought it was an affair. But instead of telling me right away, she decided to gather solid evidence first. And just as I overheard at the diner, Jack and Camila were planning something far worse than an affair. They intended to marry me off to Jack, secretly enjoy a bigamous relationship themselves, and make me take care of Jack's grandmother in the meantime. Just when I had sent a message saying I guess we're engaged now since Jack proposed, Camila, who was finalizing evidence of their secret meetings for a friend, heard from a colleague in HR that Jack had an accident on his hot spa trip and was hospitalized. Thinking I must be with him, she rushed over. "This guy rented a car through the company's benefits, so we got the accident news fast. I tried calling Arya but couldn't reach her. And guess what? The woman in the same hospital room is his affair partner. I thought Arya would be shocked if she found out." As expected, I arrived, but something seemed off. As she watched anxiously from behind the curtain, she was surprised to hear herself being accused of cheating with Jack. But what shocked her even more was that I thought she was the one being the affair partner. So it was my turn to explain. I had seen this woman named Camila, who looked a lot like Camila from a distance, at Jack's family home together with his family at a diner. I had mistakenly thought it was Camila because Jack's mother had mentioned a younger woman, and Camila looked just like her. When I shared this, Camila's expression turned to one of utter disbelief. In reality, Camila and I are close enough to be considered best friends, even though she is nearly a decade younger than me. This close friendship with Camila originated because she was the younger sister of my best friend during my middle and high school years. We spent a lot of time together as sisters, but after her sister, who was my age, tragically passed away in an accident, our friendship grew even stronger than before. However, despite Camila's carefree attitude towards me, I couldn't help but wonder if she felt burdened by our friendship, considering our age difference and completely different careers. This thought made me feel as though I had unintentionally built an insurmountable wall between us. Reflecting on these thoughts, I offered a heartfelt apology. Camila, seeing this, grinned and said, "Well, if Arya is also fed up with these jerks, then there's no need to hold back. Time to give them a taste of their own medicine," she said with a mischievous smile at Jack and Camilla. Seeing Camila's confident demeanor, Jack and Camilla were momentarily taken aback. But then Jack scoffed, "What the hell? Don't make me laugh. I was only with this old lady because she seemed useful. If she wants to break up, fine, I'll let her go." However, Camila, unfazed by Jack's bravado, provocatively said, "Oh really, feeling bold, silly Jack? What were you two discussing before I sneaked into this room?" She then thrust forward the object she had been holding in her hand, showing it to them. Intrigued by her gesture, we all leaned in to see what she was holding. It was a voice recorder. Camila then revealed that at the time of the accident, it was Camilla, not Jack, who was driving the rental car. Moreover, Camilla was actually on a driving suspension and had declared to the rental company that only Jack would be driving. Despite having enjoyed night viewing drinks at the inn, they had irresponsibly decided to drive to a nearby famous spot for nightclubs. Camila had recorded their conversation where they carelessly talked about all this. Just as Camila finished speaking, Jack, in a desperate attempt, snatched the voice recorder from her hand and, groaning in pain, tossed it into a water pitcher beside the bed. "Too bad, there goes your evidence," Jack said with a smirk. But Camila, now sporting an even more sinister smile, retorted, "Oh, what a shame. I'm not dumb enough to show off crucial evidence to the enemy like that," and then revealed a smaller voice recorder in her other hand. She also showed a pen-style IC recorder from her shirt pocket and a voice recorder app open on her smartphone in her bag. With a sly grin, she said, "See, I'm pretty good at my job," then her expression turned serious. "I'll make sure you face the consequences for hurting my best friend," she said in a firm, low voice, looking straight into Jack's eyes. Caught off guard, Jack finally fell silent, but now Camilla turned on him.
You idiot! It's all because of you and your parents messing up that our entire plan fell apart. You should be the one taking responsibility," she exclaimed, trying to confront him. But with one arm in a cast and sling, she couldn't get close enough and just ground her teeth in frustration. Jack, lifting his head, retorted, "Shut up, you trashy woman. Your only asset is being young. You misunderstood that and started talking about becoming my wife. Marrying a flimsy woman like you, I'd only end up raising someone else's kid. Who would fall for that?" Then, he also lowered his cast-covered leg from the bed and cursed as if he was about to grab her. Both were equally despicable, in a way, a perfect match. Expecting the nurses to rush into the room again at any moment to scold them, I urged Camila to leave. Standing up, I looked down at the two on the bed, ready to give my final ultimatum. "Enough, you're both so annoying. A perfect match indeed. A gold digger who cozies up to an engaged man, and a foolish guy who thinks he's smart but is just being played by a dumb woman. Just so you know, I don't have a shred of sympathy for you. The only thing I feel is contempt," I said, and then Camila and I left the room. Behind the closed door, I could hear Jack calling out to me and Camilla's angry shouts, but we ignored them and walked away. Before leaving the hot spring resort, I made a point to visit the stores and inns that Jack and his group had caused trouble for. Initially, the stores and inns thought we were relatives of the reckless driver and were quite standoffish. But when we explained the situation, their attitude changed dramatically, and they began sympathizing with us. We advised the owner of a catering shop, which had suffered significant damage. The police investigation might reveal it, but the driver who crashed into your store was likely under the influence and driving on a suspended license. You might not be able to use insurance, and worse, you could end up being stiffed on the damages. We promised to send him a copy of the recording we made in the hospital room,
which captured Jack and Camilla admitting to drunk driving and their entire scheme to pin the blame on me. Camilla suggested that while Jack's whereabouts might be trackable, finding Camilla would be difficult if she quit her job during her probation period, given today's emphasis on privacy protection. She advised quick action and stressed keeping the source of the information confidential. Camilla shared what she knew about Camilla, a rough address of her parents' house, her current apartment, and that she was likely a provisional hire through executive connections, with the executive probably being her guarantor. The shop owner, whose store had been devastated by the sudden intrusion of the runaway car, repeatedly expressed his gratitude to us, saying we were like saviors to them. However, as he rightfully had the authority to claim damages from Jack and Camilla, the prospect of them facing retribution through this legal process was, in a way, a satisfying turn of events for us. In fact, we felt it was we who should be thanking him. Camilla and I, feeling triumphant, returned to the city, but the story was different for the two left behind in the hospital. Due to their extremely poor behavior, they were quickly asked to transfer to another facility, effectively being ousted from the hospital. Upon hearing the news, Jack's parents rushed to the hospital. However, they were greeted with a hefty bill for the hospitalization and surgery costs, which also included charges for the equipment Jack and Camilla had damaged. As a result, the cash they had on hand was nowhere near sufficient. Even their attempts to sell items like bags, watches, and jewelry at pawn shops near the hospital amounted to very little. It was like a drop in the bucket. Eventually, they resorted to using the sedan they arrived in as collateral to borrow money from a car title loan company known for its unfavorable terms. The catering shop owner, who called to thank us for providing the data, informed us that the sedan car would likely end up in the possession of this lender soon, given the company's notorious reputation. Furthermore, although this incident was fortunately a single vehicle accident that did not involve anyone else, Camilla's drunk driving and suspended license were likely hidden, as the two did not report the accident to the police. Consequently, they would undoubtedly be unable to obtain a traffic accident report. Additionally, if the facts of drunk driving and driving with a suspended license were to come to light, not only would their personal injury insurance for their own injuries become invalid, but the vehicle insurance and property damage compensation for the totaled rental car would also be completely unusable. The thought of the debt hell that awaited them, lying in wait like a predator ready to pounce, brought an uncontrollable smile to my face. Subsequently, I hired a lawyer and formally demanded compensation from Jack for breaking off our engagement. Following this, Jack's parents, concerned about the reputation of Jack's company and their neighborhood, proposed, "We will pay double the standard amount if you agree to settle this matter quietly," and suggested naming the payment as severance money instead of compensation, citing that compensation sounded too negative. However, accepting money under the guise of severance could complicate things later, making it harder to discern who was at fault in the event of any future troubles related to the engagement's termination. In response, I flatly refused Jack's parents' offer and demanded not only the payment of compensation for the broken engagement but also insisted on a written document clearly stating that the reason for the termination of the engagement was due to Jack's infidelity. I required their signatures on this document. Faced with the reluctance of Jack's family, my lawyer pressed them, "If you dislike this, we can settle it in court. Is that what you want?" Subsequently, Jack's parents, seeing no other way, went to the hospital to get Jack's signature, and then transferred the full amount of the compensation to me in one go, much to my relief. In reality, if the case had gone to court, given that Jack and I had not held an engagement ceremony, booked a wedding venue, or exchanged engagement rings, it might have been debatable whether our engagement was even legally recognized. If it came to that, no matter how much I argued, the outcome would depend on a third party's judgment, like a judge. Concerned about this, my lawyer suggested a strategy of giving the other party no time to think deeply and pushing for immediate payment. This strategy worked perfectly on Jack's family, who, desperate to avoid further trouble, fell right into our trap and agreed to pay. They were indeed naive. Upon hearing from Jack's parents that the payment had been made, I went to the bank, updated my account condition, and confirmed the transaction. Then, I promptly proceeded to the next step. As a start, I reported to the police the fact that Camilla had been drinking while driving the rental car, along with the recorded evidence. The police contacted the rental car company for fact verification, which led to the company's legal counsel quickly arriving on the scene. After returning from the hospital, I printed out screenshots of the numerous social media messages that Jack and Camilla had sent me in an attempt to silence me. Along with these, I handed over the audio recordings of our interactions in the hospital room to the company's legal counsel. The lawyer, with a full grin on his face, expressed gratitude. "Thank you for your cooperation in every aspect. This will enable us to promptly proceed with the procedures for claiming damages." He then left, seemingly in high spirits, with a spring in his step. Later, a luxurious assortment of sweets arrived at my doorstep from the rental car company and their legal counsel's office, accompanied by a thank you letter. According to the letter, the rental car company, based on the evidence I had provided, notified Jack and Camilla that they were initiating a lawsuit for damages. This was due to the near-new rental car being totaled in the accident they caused. Simultaneously, a complaint was filed with the police, putting Jack and Camilla in a difficult situation. They hastily hired their own lawyer, but were bluntly told they had no chance of winning the lawsuit. They managed to settle by agreeing to pay the amount demanded by the rental car company. However, to make this lump sum payment, Jack had to face financial hardships with the mortgage of his prized high-rise apartment. It seems he had to move out and sell it, but regardless of how briefly it was lived in, a used property is still a used property. Ultimately, the sale price of Jack's high-rise apartment only reached about half of his asking price, and even after applying the entire amount to his mortgage, a considerable debt remained unpaid. Furthermore, the catering shop that Camilla's rented car crashed into demanded a substantial sum for the damages. The costs included repairs for the heavily damaged store, replacements for broken dishes and kitchen equipment, expenses for food stock bought for a 3-day holiday, compensation for alternative items and apologies to customers who had made reservations, loss of earnings due to closure during the lucrative busy season, and the replacement of a wrecked delivery minivan. In total, the bill amounted to around $700,000 in lump sum. Taking into account the advice Camilla and I had given, the shop demanded a lump sum payment from Jack and Camilla. They were warned that legal action would be taken immediately if they didn't comply. Normally, the compensation for the store damage should have been covered as property damage under personnel insurance. However, Jack and Camilla hadn't opted for the optional insurance when renting the car, and the default coverage for property damage was limited to only $200,000. Furthermore, the accident, caused by Camilla while she was under the influence and driving with a suspended license without being declared as a driver to the rental company, had not been reported at the time, thus no accident certificate was obtained. As we had anticipated, the insurance company denied coverage and Jack and Camilla ended up having to pay out of their own pockets. This led to a terrible argument between them about shifting blame.
"I never should have gotten involved with a jinx like you."
"That's my line. You were the one drooling over a younger woman," Camilla retorted during their heated exchange. This chaotic situation escalated to the point where Jack and Camilla, who had once vowed eternal love, ended up suing each other for defamation, insult, and damages. As anyone could see, it was a messy fight with no clear resolution in sight. Jack, already on leave from work due to injuries from the accident, frequently missed more work to attend court hearings, causing his company to lose patience. He was transferred to a department considered a career dead end, shattering his self-proclaimed elite pride. Due to the financial burden from various payments linked to the incident, he couldn't afford to resign. On the other hand, Camilla was still on probation, but Camilla, angrier than me, exposed that she had been involved in inappropriate relationships with not just Jack but several other male colleagues at the company. Among the men Camilla was involved with at the company, some were married. Due to disrupting company morale and potentially impacting work, despite being hired through a connection, Camilla was quickly fired without being made a permanent employee. Furthermore, several wives of the married men she was involved with demanded compensation from Camilla. While each claim was settled for a standard amount, the total sum became quite substantial due to the number of cases. If Camilla has to pay the catering shop for damages, the debt she'll accumulate at just 23 will be enormous. Falling into financial difficulty, Camilla frantically looked for another job, but when potential employers asked for a certificate of termination reasons, her prospects dimmed. Ultimately, she gave up on finding a full-time job. Now, she's said to be juggling part-time and temp jobs to make ends meet. I heard through the grapevine that she was seen, unkempt and disheveled, munching on bread while hastily biking through a warehouse district, but that's none of my concern. As for me, despite being caught up in demanding work, I'm living a fulfilling life as before. It's also a joy to have reconciled with my best friend Camila, after a period of misunderstandings and awkwardness. The only issue, if any, is Camila's unchanging nature of not learning her lesson. She keeps inviting me to mixers, saying things like, "Arya, wanna join a mixer next time?" It's organized by that temp worker we met before. She said, "I've gathered only nice people, even though they're divorced." I really think this time it'll be a hit. It's not that I've been put off by my experience with Jack, but for now, I want to enjoy the freedom of being single that I've rediscovered. So, I'm currently trying to figure out how to gently make Camila give up on the idea of dragging me to these events.